Chapter 690. In the face of Hu Fei, Chen Yu only felt a headache. He didn't know if it was because they were incompatible. Although they were both holy sons of the ancient saint sect, Chen Yu and Hu Fei never had any common topics to talk about. When they were together, they didn't have any common topics to talk about. When the two of them were together, it was like a bull's head and a horse's mouth. It was like fire and water. This clearly had something to do with their personalities. Chen Yu was undisciplined and simple-minded. He had no desire for victory or defeat. Even when completing the missions assigned by the ancient sacred sect, Chen Yu would only muddle through. He rarely fought with his life on the line. On the other hand, Hu Fei was completely different. Hu Fei's desire for victory was very strong. He also had an incomparable thirst for battle. He could be said to be a battle maniac. In any battle, even if the opponent was a weak Dao-querying realm martial artist, Hu Fei would give it his all. According to Hu Fei's own words, this was out of respect for battle. Their completely opposite personalities also caused the two of them to be incompatible. Hearing Hu Fei's slightly mocking words, Chen Yu smiled helplessly and did not say anything. He already knew that this battle maniac would say this. However, even if Chen Yu wanted to beat around the bush, Hu Fei clearly had no intention of letting him do as he wished. After a short pause, Hu Fei continued, "After I kill this blood saint Wind Ghost Chong, if you still haven't decided a victor, I'll join forces with him to attack you." When Hu Fei said this, Chen Yu almost vomited blood. What did he mean? Was he forcing a duck onto a perch? He wanted to join forces with Wu Huan to attack him? This Hu Fei could not differentiate between friend and foe. Chen Yu felt helpless and anxious, but he did not doubt Hu Fei's words. This guy was a lunatic. He would do anything. "Hey, Hu Fei, we are brothers from the same sect. So, if you don't want to be killed by me and the Wind Ghost, you'd better finish off your opponent quickly. With your strength, the battle has dragged on for so long. Do you think I don't know why?" Hu Fei interrupted without giving Chen Yu a chance to speak. Then, Hu Fei retracted his gaze and looked at Wu Qi. Instantly, a strong fighting spirit erupted from his body. "The last time I fought a direct sacred blood wind ghost was 5 years ago. I hope you won't disappoint me," Hu Fei said calmly as he stared at Wu Qi with a strong desire to fight. As he spoke, Hu Fei casually sent Xiao Chen flying with a wave of his hand. At the same time, his indifferent voice was transmitted into Xiao Chen's ears. "Those who have lost their ability to fight should not be a hindrance here." Before the battle broke out, Hu Fei rudely sent Xiao Chen back to the top of Suppressing Wind City's city walls. Although it was said to be sent back, it was more accurate to say that he directly sent Xiao Chen flying back. Xiao Chen fell heavily on the city wall. His already heavily injured body became even worse. He felt as if a few more of his bones had been broken. He grimaced in pain as he cursed. "This guy, doesn't he know that he should treat the injured more gently?" Xiao Chen cursed angrily. However, he still endured the pain and struggled to stand up. He leaned against the city wall and looked in Hu Fei's direction. The fighting spirit that erupted from Hu Fei's body had shocked Xiao Chen. He had never felt such a strong fighting spirit before. It was as if he wanted to fight against the heavens and earth. After sending Xiao Chen away, Hu Fei no longer had any plans. At the same time, Wu Qi also regained his senses and said coldly, "Humph, so what if another chosen saint has come? Do you think you can kill me? Everyone's fighting strength is about the same. At most, no one can do anything to the other." Wu Qi knew that with Hu Fei's appearance, Wu Huan's plan had completely failed. However, despite his disappointment, Wu Qi was not too worried. From the battle between Chen Yu and Wu Huan, Wu Qi could see that the human chosen saint's fighting strength was about the same as the Wind Ghost. Both sides fought fiercely, but no one could do anything to the other. However, as soon as he said this, Hu Fei revealed a mocking smile. "Our fighting strength? I don't remember letting you see my strength. Do you really think you know our chosen saint very well? Do you really think that the wind ghost with saint's blood, who fought fiercely with Chen Yu, was able to hold on until now because of his strength? Hu Fei asked several questions in a row. Wu Qi's eyes flashed with suspicion. He did not know what Hu Fei meant, but soon, Hu Fei gave him the answer with facts. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying aura erupted from Hu Fei's body. At the same time, a power of concept that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth soared into the sky. This power of concept was so strong that even Xiao Chen, who was on the city wall, could clearly feel it. At the same time, Xiao Chen's expression changed. Perfect spear intent. The power of concept that erupted from Hu Fei's body was spear intent, and it had reached the perfect spear intent. One had to know that a perfect spear intent could no longer be described as terrifying. The terrifying aura continued to engulf everything around Hu Fei. The ground was torn apart by the sharp spear intent as if it was a piece of paper. After Hu Fei's power of concept had reached the great perfection realm, he didn't even need to deliberately do anything. He only needed to release his power of concept and the surrounding ground would be unable to bear it. An unprecedented pressure came from Hu Fei's body. It was like a wave, each wave higher than the last. Wu Qi's face turned paler. They were both chosen ones, but Wu Qi felt that Hu Fei was several times more dangerous than Chen Yu. It was hard to believe that the two of them were on the same level. Looking at Wu Qi's pale face, Hu Fei said indifferently, "Our power? It seems that your Wind Ghost clan does not understand our chosen ones at all. The Wind Ghost that fought with Chen Yu should be your brother, right? Do you want to know why he was able to last so long against Chen Yu? It's very simple. It's because Chen Yu has never been serious from the beginning. Chen Yu has never had any desire for victory or defeat. However, this does not mean that you can underestimate his strength, and do not use this to judge the strength of the human Holy Son. Since you want to see our strength, I will fulfill your wish." After saying that, Hu Fei ignored Wu Qi and thrust his spear forward. The ground cracked inch by inch, and the surrounding space distorted to the extreme. At the same time, a dazzling green light burst out from the spear. Facing Hu Fei's attack, Wu Qi's eyes were filled with disbelief. "I can't dodge it, I can't block it, it's over." Such a thought unconsciously appeared in his mind. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 691. Wu Qi's expression changed when he saw Hu Fei's spear. An aura of death enveloped Wu Qi's body. It was only now that Wu Qi finally understood how foolish he had been during the battle with Xiao Chen. He thought that Xiao Chen had the strength of a holy son. After all, he was able to block so many of his attacks. Wu Qi thought that this was not something a direct disciple could do. However, at this moment, when Wu Qi faced Hu Fei, he only felt that his previous thoughts were laughable. Xiao Chen was not at the level of the Son of God. He was far from it. It was ridiculous that the Wu Qi still thought that Xiao Chen was a human son of God. His heart was filled with bitterness and shock, but it was too late to say anything now. There was no time to think, because Hu Fei's attack had already arrived. It carried an incomparably terrifying aura as it blasted towards Wu Qi. Wu Qi's eyes were filled with madness when he saw Hu Fei's attack. He had no way out. He could only go all out against Hu Fei. Otherwise, he would die here. Wu Qi roared angrily. Following his roar, a rich blood energy surged out from his body. Wu Qi could no longer care about anything else. He activated his bloodline power without any hesitation. Hu Fei sneered when he felt Wu Qi's surging bloodline power. Bloodline power? Interesting. Wind ghosts were the same as demonic beasts. Their strength was determined by their bloodline power. However, once the bloodline power was activated, the Wind Ghost clan would be able to possess great strength for a short period of time. However, after this period of time, they would fall into a period of weakness. Therefore, activating and burning bloodline power was equivalent to a secret technique of humans. There were side effects. Without any hesitation, Wu Qi activated his bloodline power. It could be seen that Wu Qi was giving it his all. There was no other way. If he didn't give it his all, Wu Qi wouldn't be a match for Hu Fei. His aura continued to rise. Hu Fei was not afraid at all. On the contrary, his battle intent became even stronger. Before Wu Qi could take the initiative to attack, Hu Fei had already made the first move. The long sword in his hand swept across and the powerful force seemed to distort the space around him. Facing Hu Fei's attack again, Wu Qi naturally didn't dare to be careless. He blocked with both hands and the sound of metal colliding rang out. Then Wu Qi was sent flying. Although he wasn't injured, Wu Qi clearly hadn't expected Hu Fei's strength to be so great. Although he had successfully blocked the attack, that terrifying force had still sent him flying without any reason. Your defense is not bad, but your strength is too weak. Is this all you Wind Ghost's bloodline power can do? It's disappointing, Hu Fei said indifferently after his attack succeeded. He did not give Wu Qi any chance to retaliate as he leaped forward and the two of them once again engaged in a fierce battle. Without the slightest hesitation, Wu Qi was at a complete disadvantage in the face of Hu Fei. Hu Fei's ferocious attacks made Wu Qi suffer unspeakably. While Hu Fei and Wu Qi were fighting fiercely, on the other side, Chen Yu, who was fighting Wu Huan, seemed to have become a different person. Initially, Chen Yu didn't really care about the outcome of the battle. He just wanted to complete the task given by the Lord. However, the appearance of Hu Fei forced Chen Yu to show his true strength. This guy was a lunatic. God knows if he would really join forces with Wu Huan to attack Chen Yu. Chen Yu had to end the battle before Hu Fei did. Chen Yu held a white iron fan in his hand. This was Chen Yu's weapon. At this moment, Chen Yu was no longer as lazy, indifferent, and domineering as before. His attacks were like a tidal wave, attacking Wu Huan wave after wave. Wu Huan had already fought with Chen Yu before, but he had never imagined that Chen Yu's strength would be so terrifying. Wu Huan's face was extremely gloomy as he blocked Chen Yu's attacks and shouted in disbelief. "Despicable human, you actually hid your strength." To put it bluntly, the previous battle with Chen Yu was just a farce to Wu Huan. The human holy sun in front of him had never been serious before. Wu Huan felt like he was being toyed with. This made him furious. He was a wind ghost with a direct sacred blood, but he was being played around by a human. Wu Huan was furious. However, Chen Yu did not care. "Actually, I didn't want to do this either. Wouldn't it be better for everyone to drag it out and leave after the battle ended? Who knew that you guys would provoke this crazy Hu Fei? There's no other way. Although I didn't want to, I didn't have a choice." As he spoke, the iron fan in Chen Yu's hand flashed, and the sharp surface of the fan left a shallow wound on Wu Huan's neck. Fortunately, Wu Huan's reaction was fast enough. Otherwise, his head would have fallen to the ground. Chen Yu laughed bitterly and helplessly when his attack failed. However, he did not stop moving. He took a step forward and his entire body turned into an afterimage as he quickly charged towards Wu Huan. It was obvious that Chen Yu had cultivated a saint-class martial skill. But thinking about it, as a saint-class martial skill of the ancient saint sect, it was natural for him to master a saint-class martial skill. But thinking about it, as a saint-class martial skill of the ancient saint sect, it was natural for him to master a saint-class martial skill. Wu Huan found it harder and harder to withstand Chen Yu's attacks. Gradually, Wu Huan began to show signs of defeat. Moreover, it wasn't just him. The Wu Qi on the other side was in an even more miserable state. Even though Wu Qi had ignited his bloodline power, he was still beaten to a pulp by Hu Fei. Wu Qi was already severely injured. Seeing this, Hu Fei had no intention of holding back as he said indifferently, "It seems that I have overestimated you, sacred blood wind ghost." As he spoke, the spear in Hu Fei's hand flashed with a green light. The light was so blinding that it was difficult to look at it directly. At the same time, Wu Qi felt an extreme aura of death enveloping him. He wanted to dodge, but for some reason, his body could not move. Wu Qi could only watch as Hu Fei thrust his spear toward his heart, his eyes flashing with terror. "No!" he shouted. "Don't!" Wu Qi was afraid in the face of death. However, his shout could not change anything. The spear pierced through his heart without any deviation. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 692. Without any hesitation, he pierced Wu Qi's heart with his spear. Darkness swept towards Wu Qi. As a direct descendant of the Saint Blood Wind Ghost, Wu Qi probably never thought that he would die here. Wu Qi's death was a huge blow to the Wind Demon's side, especially to Wu Huan. After all, Wu Qi was his younger brother. Wu Huan, who was fighting fiercely with Chun Yu, immediately went mad when he saw his own brother being killed by Hu Fei. He roared angrily and swung his claws at Chun Yu. Then, he charged madly at Wu Qi. Facing the crazy Wu Huan, the other Saint Blood Wind Ghosts took the opportunity to leave the battlefield when Wu Qi died. At this moment, 2 Saint Blood Wind Ghosts pulled Wu Huan back and said with a serious expression, "Brother Wu Huan, don't be rash. The humans have 2 saints now." Hu Fei had killed Wu Qi. Everyone knew very well what this meant. It was clear that they could not continue fighting. Otherwise, not only Wu Qi, but all the Saint Blood Wind Ghosts present would be killed. Hu Fei was now free. If he joined forces with Chun Yu, Wu Huan would have no chance of survival. It would be impossible for him to run away. Because they understood this, the 2 Saint Blood Wind Ghosts also left the battle and stopped the crazy Wu Huan. Hearing the 2 Saint Blood Wind Ghosts' words, Wu Huan naturally understood this principle. However, seeing Wu Qi being killed in front of his eyes had indeed caused him to lose his mind for a moment. Now that he gradually calmed down, and with the persuasion of the 2 Saint Blood Wind Ghosts, Wu Huan naturally rode his donkey down the slope. He glared at Hu Fei fiercely and then turned to leave. Wu Huan fled with the rest of the Saint Blood Wind Ghost. Hu Fei did not chase after them. Clearly, after killing Wu Qi, Hu Fei had lost interest in the Saint Blood Wind Ghost and did not bother to chase after them. If Hu Fei didn't chase after them, then it was even more impossible for Chun Yu to do so. He couldn't wait for these Saint-Blooded Wind Ghosts to retreat on their own. That way, he wouldn't have to fight anymore. Since the 2 holy scions did not give chase, the other personal disciples did not do so as well, allowing Wu Huan and the others to flee in panic. Hu Fei looked at Chun Yu in displeasure. "Hurry up and finish this battle. I still have things to do." Now that the Saint Blood Wind Ghost had retreated, the next step was naturally to deal with the small fries. As for the Wind Ghost King and the Wind Ghost Saint King, they would naturally be dealt with by the half-saints and saints. Chun Yu wanted to end the battle here as soon as possible. However, when he heard Hu Fei's words, he replied nonchalantly, "If you want to go, go by yourself. I'm tired." Clearly, Chun Yu would not take action again. The Sacred Blood Wind Ghost had already retreated. Chun Yu's mission could be considered to have been completed perfectly. Although there had been a small interlude, the result was good. After hearing Chun Yu's reply, Hu Fei also knew this guy's character. Without saying anything else, he rushed down to the battlefield in a flash. The human cultivators and the wind ghosts were still fighting fiercely below. There was no other way. There were just too many wind ghosts. Although the human cultivators were far stronger than the wind ghosts, it was still difficult to determine the victor in a short period of time. However, with Hu Fei's participation in the originally intense battle, the scales of victory quickly tilted towards the human cultivators. Like a tiger in a flock of sheep, Hu Fei rushed into the group of wind ghosts by himself and instantly slaughtered the wind ghost. No matter what level the wind ghost was, it was no match for Hu Fei. Seeing Hu Fei happily slaughtering the wind ghost group by himself, The personal disciples present were all stunned. As personal disciples, they could be said to be the closest to the chosen saint in the younger generation. It seemed like they were only one step away, but now they knew that this step was like the difference between heaven and earth. Even Xiao Chen, who was on the city wall, had a shocked expression on his face as he muttered softly, "This is the true strength of a chosen saint." It seems like Yun Luan was still holding back. It wasn't that Xiao Chen had never met a chosen saint before. However, whether it was Yun Luan or Qin Yu, both of them had never truly displayed the terror of a chosen saint. But now, Hu Fei used the most direct method to tell Xiao Qin and the other personal disciples what a chosen saint was. Xiao Qin couldn't help but sigh. In response, Xiao Xing's weak voice sounded in his mind. "Kid, didn't I tell you before? A chosen saint and a personal disciple are completely different. Do you think this Hu Fei is very strong? What would you think if I told you that he still hasn't used his full strength?" Hu Fei had already slaughtered the Wind Ghost group by himself. However, Xiao Xing told Xiao Qin that this still wasn't Hu Fei's true strength. Xiao Qin really didn't know what to think when he heard that. Xiao Qin fell silent while Xiao Xing chuckled and said, "Kid, you still have a long way to go if you want to become a chosen saint. You can only covet the position of a chosen saint when your combat strength reaches the Tao Emperor realm." Xiao Xing's meaning was very clear. To put it bluntly, cultivation wasn't important if one wanted to become a chosen saint, but one's combat strength had to at least reach the Tao Emperor realm. To be honest, if he hadn't personally witnessed how terrifying Hu Fei was and coupled with the fact that these words were spoken by Xiao Xing, Xiao Chen would have probably thought that someone was bragging. Even though he couldn't see through Hu Fei and Chen Yu's exact cultivations, Xiao Chen was sure that their cultivations had absolutely not attained the Tao Emperor realm. They hadn't even attained the Tao Emperor realm, yet they possessed combat strength comparable to a Tao Emperor realm expert. This wasn't something that could be explained by surmounting a realm to battle. On the heavenly Chen continent, those who could surmount a realm to defeat an enemy could already be considered as geniuses. Moreover, they were only at the level of low-level cultivators. On the other hand, chosen saints were still able to surmount a realm to battle even after attaining the Tao Emperor realm. The gap between them was obvious. Xiao Chen was shocked in his heart. At the same time, the Wind Ghost group was quickly annihilated by Hu Fei to the point they didn't have the ability to fight back. These Wind Ghosts weren't very intelligent, so they instinctively started to retreat when they faced Hu Fei, who they couldn't defeat. When they sensed the retreat of the Wind Ghost group, the morale of the human cultivators naturally soared, and they all started to pursue. One pursued while the other fled, and it could be said that they had a certain advantage. At this moment, Hu Fei didn't continue to attack. Since victory was already decided, Hu Fei's figure flashed over to Qin Yu. At this moment, Yi Su had already arrived by Qin Yu's side. Yi Su was still slightly nervous when facing Hu Fei, so he immediately bowed respectfully and greeted him. "Greetings, holy son Hu Fei." Yi Su was Qin Yu's holy servant, so he wasn't unfamiliar with Hu Fei. When he heard Yi Su, Hu Fei nodded indifferently, and then he looked at Qin Yu. "The matter is resolved. I'm leaving. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 693. The outcome of the battle had been decided. Now it was up to the saints and half-sages. Hu Fei and Qing Yu were not far behind. Chen Yu did not find it strange when he heard Hu Fei's words. He smiled and said, "You're leaving already? Don't. We haven't had a good drink yet. It won't be too late to leave after drinking." "No need. I still have things to do," Hu Fei replied without giving Chen Yu any face. He did not wait for Chen Yu's reply and turned to fly towards the transportation array in wind-suppressing city. He left without any hesitation. However, when he flew to the city wall, he glanced at Xiao Chen. There was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He knew that Xiao Chen was holding back Wu Qi before he noticed. However, Shao Qin was only a direct disciple. Wu Qi's strength had obviously surpassed the level of a direct disciple. To be more precise, Wu Qi's strength should be between a direct disciple and a chosen. Because of this, Hu Fei was curious that Shao Qin was able to hold back Wu Qi. Before he left, Hu Fei glanced at Shao Qin. His intuition told him that the ancient sacred sect would become lively soon. Hu Fei left without saying anything. Of course, he was not the only one who was curious. Chen Yu was the same. As for the other direct disciples, they were shocked by Shao Qin's performance. Of course, they did not know that the previous battle had nothing to do with Shao Qin. Hu Fei had only borrowed his body. With Shao Qin's current strength, it was impossible for him to deal with Wu Qi. Not to mention Wu Qi, Hu Fei was not even a match for Yi Ting. Hu Fei left as quickly as he came. There was nothing else for them to do. Chen Yu also came to the top of the wall with Yi Su and looked at Shao Qin. Chen Yu said with a smile, "Junior brother Shao, you really don't show off. You were actually able to fight against Wu Qi. You really opened my eyes." As Chen Yu spoke, the direct disciples who had arrived at the top of the wall one after another also locked their gazes on Shao Qin. Their eyes were all filled with respect. There was no other way. The world of martial artists was like this. Strength was respected and the strong were respected. Shao Qian's strength could no longer be regarded as an ordinary direct disciple because Shao Qian's strength had exceeded the scope of a direct disciple. Faced with the respectful gazes of the crowd, Shao Qin said with a smile, "Senior brother Qin, you must be joking. I had no choice just now. I was also not a match for Wu Qi. If Holy Son Hu Fei had not arrived in time, I'm afraid I would have died. Let's not talk about this. Now that the battle has been decided, we just have to wait for those old fellows to deal with the Wind Ghost King and the Wind Ghost Holy King. Then, this battle will come to an end. At that time, I'll look for you for a drink." Chen Yu did not linger on the topic after hearing Shao Qian's words. However, just as Chen Yu finished speaking, Yi Su said indifferently, "You can only drink 3 jars." Chen Yu, who was originally in high spirits, immediately lost his temper when he heard Yi Su's words. There was no need to worry too much about the battle, so everyone was in a good mood. After chatting for a while, Shao Qian was naturally arranged to enter the city to recuperate because of his serious injuries. After returning to the city, Shao Qian had nothing to worry about. After all, he had done what he needed to do. As for the battle between saints and semi-saints, it was no longer something he could consider. Not to mention himself, even the 2 holy sons, Chen Yu and Hu Fei, were not qualified to intervene in that level of battle. After sending Shao Qian back to his residence, a young warrior of the celestial realm came in with a jade bottle in his hand. He had already prepared some healing pills for Shao Qian. After accepting the healing pill, Shao Qian no longer paid attention to the outside world and began to focus on recuperating. Now that there was no need to worry about the Wind Ghost's attack, it would not be long before the martial law in Wind Suppression City was lifted. At that time, it would be time for Shao Qian to head to the Wind Plains. Therefore, before that, Shao Qian had to recuperate. Shao Qian swallowed the healing pill in the jade bottle in one gulp. The healing pill was a heaven-level upper-grade healing pill, which was specially delivered by Chen Yu. Otherwise, Shao Qian would not have been able to enjoy it. As soon as the pill entered his stomach, a gentle medicinal power spread through Shao Qian's limbs and meridians. At the same time, Shao Qian's wounds began to heal quickly. Closing his eyes and sitting cross-legged, Shao Qian was recuperating in his residence. Outside the city, the battles between the half-sages and saints had also ended. They naturally knew about the changes in the battle. Now that the Wind Ghost group had fled back to the Wind Plains, the Wind Ghost Kings and Wind Ghost Saint Kings had no intention of continuing the battle. They all chose to retreat. In response, the saints and half-sages did not choose to pursue them. After all, it would be difficult to kill the Wind Ghost Kings and Wind Ghost Saint Kings even if they did. Since they chose to retreat, it meant that the battle was over. At the end of the battle, cheers erupted outside Wind Suppression City. They had survived the Wind Demon's attack without any mishap. Wind Suppression City was safe and sound, and the next step was to wrap things up. Clean up the battlefield and reward the cultivators who had resisted the Wind Ghost's attack together. The City Lord Mansion of Wind Suppression City clearly had its own procedures for these matters. Therefore, there were many things that did not need to be worried about. They just needed to follow the prescribed procedures. After arranging for people to clean up the battlefield outside the city, Saint Kuang Li, Saint Qingju, and the other saints, as well as Chun Yu, sat in the pavilion in the backyard. After taking a sip of tea, Saint Qingju smiled faintly and said, "Chun Yu, I heard that something happened to you this time. Even Hu Fei was attracted by you." The fact that Hu Fei had been here before could not be hidden from the saint. Chun Yu did not deny it. He nodded and said lazily, "He's here." "That's right. This time, there are 2 Saint Blood Wind Ghosts with direct lineage. Personal disciples won't be able to stop them. There's no other way. We can only let Hu Fei go. After all, he's a battle maniac." Chun Yu wasn't nervous in the slightest when he was with the 5 saints. On the contrary, he seemed very relaxed. In the entire younger generation of the ancient saint continent, there were probably only a few saints who could talk so calmly with saints. Hearing Chun Yu's words, Saint Qingju's smile did not fade. He continued, "You've worked hard this time. I didn't expect that there would be 2 direct descendants of the Saint Blood Wind Ghost. However, other than Hu Fei, there's another person who must have contributed a lot. To be honest, even us old guys were shocked. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 694. Saint Qingjue took the initiative to speak. Hearing this, everyone knew who Saint Qingjue was talking about. Naturally, it was Shao Chun. Before Hu Fei arrived, Shao Chun had blocked Wu Qi. Although he was still defeated in the end, being able to block Wu Qi for so long with his own strength was enough to make people look at him in a new light. Not only did the saints know that Shao Chun had blocked Wu Qi, it could be said that the news had spread throughout the entire Wind Suppression City. The most noteworthy part of this battle was not the battle between saints and half-saints, because no one saw the battle between saints and half-saints. The most noteworthy part was Shao Chun and Hu Fei. Hu Fei's strength was admired by everyone, and Shao Chun was like a hidden dragon that had come out of the abyss, shocking everyone. Hearing Saint Qingjue's words, Saint Kuang Li also laughed loudly and said, "That's right, Shao Chun has really opened our eyes. As a direct disciple, he was actually able to block Wu Qi. It's really unexpected." Saint Kuang Li also praised Shao Chun's performance in this battle. The 2 saints spoke one after another, and the other 3 saints nodded slightly in agreement. This Shao Chun should be a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. It's said that he has only been a disciple of Tianjin Xingzong for a short 2 years. It's really unexpected that he could make such progress. Yes, this Shao Chun is only Tianfeng Xingzong's 10th direct disciple, but he was able to block Wu Qi. This strength is probably much stronger than the first direct disciple. Maybe he used some secret method. The saints discussed one after another. They were curious about Shao Chun, so they deliberately asked about him. As Tianfeng Xingzong's 10th direct disciple, logically speaking, Shao Chun should not be a match for Wu Qi. After all, even Wang Zong, who was ranked first, would lose more than win against Wu Qi. Because it was somewhat inconceivable, the saints concluded that Shao Chun might have used some secret method. Of course, the saints did not intend to delve into this. After all, everyone had their own secrets and opportunities. As saints, they naturally would not covet Shao Chun's opportunities, let alone inquire about Shao Chun's secret. After chatting for a while, Saint Qingjue finally said meaningfully, "Shao Chun is not bad. You can pay attention to him." The meaning of this words of Saint Qingjue was very clear. After this battle, Xiao Chun had successfully entered the eyes of the ancient saint sect's upper echelons. He could pay attention to it. What should he look at? Naturally, it was to see Xiao Chen's potential. Hearing Saint Qingjue's words, Saint Kuangli and the others all nodded in agreement. Seeing this, Chen Yu also revealed a smile on his face. He seemed to have guessed something in his heart. The battle was over, and the cleanup work was carried out in an orderly manner. Without the threat of the wind ghost, the atmosphere in Wind Suppression City was much more relaxed. Of course, there was one thing that everyone was still waiting for, and that was the reward from the ancient saint sect. After this battle, the reward was naturally indispensable, and this was probably what everyone was most concerned about. After all, according to previous experience, after every attack by the Wind Ghost, warriors who participated in the battle would receive a lot of rewards. Time passed slowly, and in the blink of an eye, 5 days had passed. During these 5 days, Xiao Chun did not take a single step out of his small courtyard. After 5 days of recuperation, Xiao Chen's injuries were almost completely healed. Early in the morning, Xiao Chen withdrew from his cultivation. Feeling that his condition had returned to its peak, he opened the door with a smile on his face. His injuries were completely healed, and the next step was to head to the Wind Plains. Due to the Wind Ghost's attack this time, a lot of time had been delayed. I wonder if the martial law in Wind Suppression City has been lifted. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Chen whispered softly. He still didn't know what the situation outside was like. Just as Xiao Chen finished speaking, a Tianfeng Xingzong disciple ran in quickly and said excitedly, "Senior brother Xiao Chen, Holy Sun Chen Yu has come to visit." Chen Yu took the initiative to visit. For a Tianfeng Xingzong disciple, this was simply like a dream. Who was Chen Yu? He was the holy son of the ancient saint sect. No wonder this disciple's face was filled with excitement. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled slightly and said, "Senior brother Chen Yu, where is he now?" "He's in the main hall. The elder is receiving him." Hearing this, the disciple replied truthfully. The elder of Tianfeng Shengzong was receiving Chen Yu. Regarding this, Xiao Chen didn't say much and walked towards the main hall. To be received by the elder of the ancient saint sect was already extremely good treatment. However, it was nothing to Chen Yu. Chen Yu was the holy son. In terms of status, he was actually on the same level as the Tianfeng saint. Perhaps only the few saints in the ancient saint sect could suppress Chen Yu. Therefore, even as an elder, when meeting Chen Yu, he was still very respectful. Soon, Xiao Chen strode into the main hall and saw Chen Yu chatting with an elder of Tianfeng Xingzong. This time, Chen Yu was wearing the holy sun robe of the ancient saint sect. His temperament was completely different from before. Although he was still as lazy as before, there was an additional sense of majesty in his laziness. Walking into the main hall with a smile, Xiao Chen smiled and said, "Senior brother Chen Yu, what brings you here?" Xiao Chen was here. Regarding this, the elder of Tianfeng Xingzong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Receiving the Holy Sun wasn't an easy task. Although Chen Yu's attitude was very easygoing, the elder didn't dare to relax at all. Every word that he said had to be carefully considered. Now that Xiao Chen was here, he was finally relieved. Therefore, before Chen Yu could speak, the elder stood up and said, "Xiao Chen, you're here. Holy Sun Chen Yu is here to see you." Hearing this, Xiao Chen bowed to the elder, then looked at Chen Yu and said, "Senior brother Chen Yu, why don't we have a seat in my small courtyard?" Knowing that the elder was under a lot of pressure by Chen Yu's side, Xiao Chen took the initiative to suggest this. In response, Chen Yu also smiled and said, "Okay, let's go." With that, Xiao Chen, Chen Yu, and Yi Su left the main hall. Only after the three of them left did the elder of Tianfeng Xingzong truly heave a sigh of relief. He sat down on a chair and smiled helplessly. It's better not to receive the Holy Sun in the future. It's really suffocating. Unaware of the elder's sigh, the three of them went all the way to Xiao Chen's small courtyard. Chen Yu didn't stand on ceremony at all and directly sat down in the pavilion. He said with a lazy smile on his face, "Junior brother Xiao Chen, congratulations this time. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 695. He sat down to congratulate him. Xiao Chen asked in confusion, "Senior brother Chen, you must be joking. What's there to congratulate me about?" After a few interactions, Xiao Chen and Chen Yu had become familiar with each other. Although they weren't close friends, they were extremely casual when they conversed. Unlike the elder from before, Chen Yu didn't feel too much pressure in front of Xiao Chen, so he asked very casually. Chen Yu smiled lazily in response. "Are you really confused or pretending to be confused? Your performance this time was so eye-catching that you've been remembered by all the saints. Saint Qingju even said that he would pay more attention to you in the future. It looks like our junior brother will definitely become the chosen son in the future." "I've been noticed by all the saints?" Xiao Chen was slightly stunned when he heard that, but he quickly got over it. If he was noticed, then so be it. Moreover, it wasn't a bad thing for Xiao Chen to be noticed by all the saints. Xiao Chen wouldn't be worried because of that. With the attention of the saints, it would definitely be more convenient for Xiao Chen to head to the ancient sacred sect. At the very least, there wouldn't be any trivial troubles. As for whether he could become the chosen son, that would depend on his own strength. Without the strength of a chosen son, let alone the attention of a saint, even if you were the son of a saint, you still wouldn't be able to become the chosen son. That was without a doubt. After all, the chosen son represented the face of the ancient sacred sect. It was impossible to become the chosen son if one only continued to look like one. Upon hearing Chen Yu's words, Xiao Chen smiled and replied, "Senior brother Chen, are you making fun of me? Me becoming the chosen son? That's probably going to take a long time." Chen Yu said that Xiao Chen was definitely going to become the chosen son. Xiao Chen naturally didn't believe such nonsense. Was there anything in the world that was definitely going to happen? Until the very last moment, anything was possible. However, although there were no absolutes in the world, Xiao Chen had absolute confidence in his position as the Holy Son. Firstly, it was because of his own talent. Secondly, it was because of Xiao Xing. With Xiao Xing by his side, Xiao Chen and the others would always have a saint to guide them in their cultivation. Moreover, this saint was once the first saint of the Tianhe continent. If he still couldn't become a holy son, then he could only blame himself. It was precisely because of his absolute confidence that Xiao Chen revealed his determination to obtain the position of the Holy Son even though he denied Chen Yu's teasing. Chen Yu naturally sensed Xiao Chen's confidence. With a hearty laugh, he took out a jade bottle from his storage ring and handed 3 talismans to Xiao Chen. "This is a reward from the saints." In the jade bottle is a saint-level elixir called the Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir, and the talisman is a black armor talisman. "I heard that you are going to the Wind Plane to gain experience. Take these 3 black armor talismans with you." Xiao Chen was very familiar with the black armor talisman, but this was the first time he had seen the Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir. In other words, this was the first time Xiao Chen had come into contact with a saint-level elixir. After all, only a saint-level alchemist could refine a saint-level elixir. Xiao Chen didn't understand the function of the Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir, but it didn't matter because Xiao Xing's voice sounded in his mind at this time. "Little guy, it seems that the saints of the ancient sacred sect really think highly of you. They actually gave you a Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir. Old ancestor, what's the use of this Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir? What's the use of it? You really don't know what's good for you. This Marrow Cleansing Saint Elixir is specially used to cleanse the marrow. It not only strengthens the physical body and meridians, but also cleanses the impurities and residual elixirs in the body. When a warrior cultivates, even if he pays attention to the foundation, he can't avoid taking elixirs. No matter if it's for cultivation or healing, as long as it's an elixir, the residual efficacy will naturally remain in the body. These elixirs have no effect on cultivation, but if you want to become a real expert or a holy son, you must be perfect. This marrow-cleansing saint elixir can help you cleanse the impurities in your body, making your body as pure as a newborn baby. Do you understand? After explaining the function of the marrow-cleansing saint elixir to Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a touch of passion. This was really a treasure. After knowing the preciousness of the marrow-cleansing saint elixir, it was definitely a priceless item. Of course, Xiao Chen didn't know that the marrow-cleansing saint elixir was extremely difficult to refine in the ancient sacred sect, so only saints and holy sons were qualified to take it. This was especially true for the holy sons, like Qin Yu and the others. Every year, they would be rewarded with a marrow-cleansing sacred pill to wash away the impurities and elixir dregs that remained in their bodies during cultivation. He put away the marrow-cleansing saint elixir and the black armor talisman. He had to admit that these rewards were indeed very valuable, and they were all things that Xiao Chen needed right now. It could be seen that Saint Qingjue and the others had put in a lot of effort to reward Xiao Chen. After giving the rewards to Xiao Chen and finishing the business, Chen Yu glanced at Yisu beside him. Seeing this, Yisu took out some wine and food from her storage ring. Chen Yu said with a smile, "Brother Xiao, the business is over. Shouldn't we have a good drink next? I've begged little Yisu for a long time for this drink, so this time we can drink to our heart's content. There's no limit, haha," Chen Yu said happily. However, as soon as he finished speaking, Yisu reminded him faintly, "Don't forget, you promised me that you won't drink for a year after this meal." This time, in order to make Yisu stop drinking, Chen Yu had put in a lot of effort. He had paid the price of not drinking for a year in exchange for drinking to his heart's content. Hearing Yisu's words, Chen Yu's expression instantly became uneasy. He really wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Xiao Chen looked at Chen Yu's expression, which was as if his parents had died, and laughed involuntarily. Logically speaking, as Yisu was Chen Yu's holy servant, he should have been obedient to Chen Yu. However, the actual situation was the opposite. Yisu had Chen Yu under his thumb, and Chen Yu had no way of dealing with Yisu. Xiao Chen really did not know what kind of story and relationship there was between the two of them. Xiao Chen did not believe that it was just a simple holy servant relationship. Chen Yu's face was bitter, but soon, he turned his grief and anger into alcohol tolerance. Since he had already agreed, he naturally had to drink until he was dizzy. Otherwise, it would be a loss. "Junior brother Xiao Chen, come on. Let's have a good drink today. The next time we drink will be a year later." Chen Yu took the initiative to raise his wine glass and said with a smile, "Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation." End of chapter. Chapter 696. After they finished talking about business, Chen Yu invited Xiao Chen to drink. When he thought about how he wouldn't be able to drink this wine for a year, Chen Yu obviously relaxed. It felt as if he was going to drink all the wine for this year in one go. Xiao Chen did not hate Chen Yu in the first place, so he was quite happy drinking. Especially Chen Yu, who was so drunk that he passed out in the end. Xiao Chen had no choice but to let him rest here. With Chen Yu's cultivation, it was naturally impossible for him to get drunk from wine. It could only be said that this guy asked to be drunk and didn't use spirit power to dissolve the alcohol in his body. That was why he was so drunk. However, thinking about how Chen Yu wouldn't be able to touch a single drop of wine for the next year, it wasn't strange. After settling Chen Yu down, Yisu naturally lived with Chen Yu. After returning to his room, Xiao Chen originally planned to leave for the Wind Plain tomorrow. After all, they had already wasted a lot of time in suppressing Wind City. However, Xiao Xing had a different opinion about Xiao Chen's decision. "We've already wasted so much time, there's no hurry. Since the ancient sacred sect has rewarded you with a marrow-cleansing saint pill, you should refine it first. With this marrow-cleansing saint pill, your cultivation should be able to break through to the Tao confirmation realm, Xiaochen, Xiaoxing said. The marrow-cleansing saint elixir did not have much effect on making a breakthrough in cultivation, but Xiao Chen's cultivation had now reached the entry level of the Tao proving realm. He was only one step away from breaking through to the small success level of the Tao proving realm. As such, the marrow-cleansing saint elixir naturally became that final step. Since it had already come to this point, Xiaoxing wasn't in a hurry. Moreover, after Xiaochen refined the marrow-cleansing saint pill, his strength would definitely increase a lot. It would be easier for him to enter the wind plane. Sharpening the axe won't delay the work of cutting firewood. This was what Xiaoxing meant. After hearing Xiaoxing's suggestion, Xiaochen thought for a moment and agreed. He planned to refine the marrow-cleansing saint pill before leaving for the wind plane. Thus, Xiaochen wasn't in a hurry. The next day, after Chen Yu woke up, the two chatted for a while. Chen Yu told Xiaochen that he was leaving Suppressing Wind City today. Now that the wind ghost attack had ended, there was no need for Chen Yu to continue staying in Suppressing Wind City. Junior Xiaochen, I'm afraid the next time we'll meet in the ancient sacred sect. At that time, we'll have a good drink. Chen Yu personally sent Chen Yu at the door. After witnessing Xiao Chen's strength with his own eyes, Chen Yu was confident that Xiao Chen would be able to join the ancient sacred sect soon. Xiao Chen smiled and nodded in response. Then, Chen Yu left with Yi Su. Chen Yu didn't say whether he would go to the ancient sacred sect or somewhere else. Xiao Chen didn't ask. After sending Chen Yu off, Xiao Chen planned to refine the marrow-cleansing saint pill. This was Xiao Chen's first time coming into contact with a saint-grade elixir. To be honest, Xiao Chen was looking forward to the effects of the marrow-cleansing saint pill. After all, Xiaoxing had praised the marrow-cleansing saint pill. For Xiaoxing to praise a saint-grade elixir, one could see how heaven-defying the marrow-cleansing saint pill was. Returning to his room, Xiao Chen instructed the disciples of Tianfeng Xingzong that he was going into seclusion and that no one was to disturb him. Then, he sat cross-legged on a praying mat in the room. He didn't rush to swallow the marrow-cleansing saint pill. Instead, he adjusted his condition first. Then, Xiao Chen took out the marrow-cleansing saint pill. It was the size of a thumb and golden in color. When Xiao Chen poured the marrow-cleansing saint pill out of the jade bottle, a refreshing pill fragrance quickly spread out. The entire room was filled with the medicinal fragrance of the marrow-cleansing saint pill. Oh, I didn't expect the ancient sacred sect to be so generous. It's actually a marrow-cleansing saint pill with golden veins. Elixirs were not only divided into grades, but also into good and bad. The same type of elixir could be divided into green veins, red veins, and golden veins. Green veins elixir was the worst, while golden veins elixir was the best. Depending on the quality of the elixir, the price of the same elixir would naturally be different. Most intuitively speaking, the price of a single golden patterned pill would be comparable to 3 blue patterned pills at the very least. Originally, the ancient sacred sect had rewarded Xiaochen with a marrow-cleansing saint pill. This could already be considered a pleasant surprise. He didn't expect the marrow-cleansing saint pill to be at the level of a golden veins elixir. Xiaoxing exclaimed softly. He didn't expect the ancient sacred sect to value Xiaochen so much. Regarding this, Xiaochen was also excited. However, he quickly calmed down and swallowed the marrow-cleansing saint pill. After reaching the saint grade, the marrow-cleansing saint pill's medicinal effect was naturally extremely powerful. However, under the premise of having a huge amount of energy, the medicinal effect of the marrow-cleansing saint pill was very gentle. It wouldn't harm the body of the person who consumed it. As soon as the marrow-cleansing saint pill entered his stomach, a warm current quickly flowed through Xiao Chen's limbs and veins. He could clearly feel that this gentle power was like a scalpel, constantly penetrating into his bone marrow, skin, meridians, and muscles, removing the remaining impurities in his body inch by inch. The most important function of the marrow-cleansing Saint pill was to cleanse the marrow. However, during this entire process, Xiao Chen didn't feel the slightest pain. On the contrary, he felt very comfortable. At the same time, during the process of cleansing the marrow, the spiritual energy in Xiao Chen's body also began to break through to the initial Tao validation realm with the help of the marrow-cleansing Saint pill. It had been 2 years since he joined the Tianfeng Xingzong. During these 2 years, Xiao Chen's cultivation had not broken through. His purpose was to lay a good foundation and eliminate the side effects of the Tao formation. During these 2 years, Xiao Chen hadn't broken through, but his foundation was already very solid. At this time, with the help of the marrow-cleansing Saint pill, it could be said that Xiao Chen's foundation was much stronger than before. It was a completely natural breakthrough, and Xiao Chen didn't need to do anything. As the marrow-cleansing Saint pill continued to cleanse the impurities in his body, Xiao Chen's cultivation naturally broke through to the initial Tao validation realm. Without the slightest hindrance, the barrier to the initial Tao validation realm was broken through. At the same time, layers of black impurities were constantly forced out of Xiao Chen's skin and pores. When these impurities appeared, a stench suddenly spread out. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about it at all, because at this time, Xiao Chen could clearly feel the changes in his body. It was as if some kind of shackle had been unlocked. With the help of the marrow-cleansing Saint pill, Xiao Chen only felt that his whole body seemed to have relaxed a lot in an instant. This feeling was similar to when you were carrying a huge backpack and were panting from exhaustion. Suddenly, you dropped the heavy backpack. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. End of chapter. Chapter 697. He felt much more relaxed. He had to admit that the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir was worthy of being a divine-grade elixir. Its effect was immediate and it was of great help to him. However, in the entire ancient saint state, only the ancient saint sect had a saint-grade alchemist who could refine god-grade elixirs. As the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir was extremely difficult to refine and the heavenly treasures required to refine it were very expensive, only the Holy Son was qualified to consume it. It could be said that he had successfully experienced what it was like to be a Holy Son. It took Xiao Chen 2 days to completely digest the medicinal effect of the marrow-cleansing Saint pill. At the same time, his cultivation base of the minor success Tao realm had also been completely stabilized during these 2 days. He didn't know if it was because of the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir, but when he broke through to the minor success Tao validation realm this time, he didn't have the same aura as before. On the contrary, as soon as he broke through, Xiao Chen's aura was very dense, not like a person who had just broken through. Of course, the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir's effect was one of the reasons. However, Xiao Chen had also stayed in the Tao validation realm for 2 years. His foundation could be said to be incomparably solid. With the combination of the two, Xiao Chen was able to stabilize the realm he had just broken through in such a short time. Xiao Chen's cultivation base was completely stabilized, and the medicinal effect of the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir was successfully refined. He took a comfortable bath. After the marrow cleansing by the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir, Xiao Chen felt much more energetic. After resting for another night in Suppressing Wind City, early the next morning, Xiao Chen was ready to set off for the Wind Plains. He had delayed for another 3 days in order to refine the marrow-cleansing Saint elixir. After 3 days, Suppressing Wind City had returned to normal. The martial law in the city had also been lifted. At the same time, the disciples and warriors of the major sects had also left one after another. In the small courtyard where Xiao Chen lived, the disciples of Tianfeng Xingzong had basically all returned. Only a few ordinary disciples were still there. After bidding farewell to the few people, Xiao Chen set off for the Wind Plains. This time, when he arrived at the city gate, No one stopped Xiao Chen, and he smoothly left the city. After leaving Suppressing Wind City, they would be able to enter the outer regions of the Wind Plains after another 50 to 60 li. They were not in a hurry, and along the way, Xiao Chen also saw other people heading towards the Wind Plains. Although the Wind Plains was one of the 4 great deathlands of the Tianhe continent, it still contained many opportunities. Therefore, although there were not many people who went to explore the Wind Plains, it was definitely not impossible. However, under normal circumstances, most people who entered the Wind Plains would choose to travel in group. Unless they were extremely powerful, very few people would choose to travel alone. Generally speaking, the dangers of the Wind Plain mainly came from 2 aspects. The first was the strong winds that constantly attacked the Wind Plain. This was also the reason why the Wind Plain was so dangerous. Without the Black Armor Talisman, it was simply impossible for human warriors to enter the Wind Plains. Apart from these fierce gales, the second danger was naturally the Wind Ghost. Xiao Chen had a total of 6 Black Armor Talismans. Originally, the Heavenly Wind Saint had given him 3, and then the ancient sacred sect had rewarded him with another 3. 6 Black Armor Talismans, if nothing unexpected happened, should be enough. Moreover, apart from the 6 Black Armor Talismans, Xiao Chen also had many defensive soul treasures. These soul treasures could also play a role in resisting the strong gales of the Wind Plains. Of course, this was only the outer regions. Once Xiao Chen entered the depths of the Wind Plains, he would still have to rely on the Black Armor Talismans. Along the way, the distance of 50 to 60 li was not too far for Xiao Chen. Soon, Xiao Chen could see the outer regions of the Wind Plains. It was as if the Wind Plains were shrouded in a barrier. Very abruptly, a wind wall separated the Wind Plains from the outside world. As he got closer and closer to the Wind Plains, Xiao Chen could also see that there were several small groups that were heading towards the Wind Plains to train. These small groups might be disciples of the same sect, or they might be rogue cultivators who knew each other. They had set up camp in the outer regions of the Wind Plains, preparing to enter the Wind Plains. Compared to these small groups, Xiao Chen naturally did not have to go through so much trouble. After taking out his defensive soul treasure and activating it, Xiao Chen directly entered the Wind Plains. In the outer regions of the Wind Plains, there was no need to use the Black Armor Talismans. Relying on defensive soul treasures was enough. This was what Xiao Xing had told Xiao Chen. After all, with 6 Black Armor Talismans, it was a lot to start with, but he still had to be prepared for any accident. After passing through the wind wall, Xiao Chen was considered to have successfully entered the Wind Plains. For a moment, the sound of the wind constantly entered his ears, and he could clearly feel that the wind was like a sharp blade blowing past his body. It was incomparably terrifying. In the entire Tianhe continent, only the Wind Ghost clan could live without restrictions in the Wind Plains. Other clans, whether it was human or demonic beasts, had to rely on treasures or talismans to withstand the fierce winds of the Wind Plains. Of course, when one reached the Sage Realm, they could rely on their own strength to withstand the strong winds of the Wind Plains. However, this was not a long-term solution. After all, there would come a time when they would be exhausted. He looked around and saw that there was not even a blade of grass in sight. The only thing that could be seen was the terrifying gale that blew past all year round. Because the Wind Plains was shrouded in terrifying gales all year round, the Wind Plains was extremely desolate. The ground was bare. Not to mention trees, there was not even a single blade of grass. Thinking about it, even a semi-sage expert would find it difficult to withstand the fierce winds. How could the trees and weeds survive? This time, the purpose of going to the Wind Plains was to find the Heavenly Spirit Lake. Therefore, Xiao Chen naturally had to ask Xiao Xing, "Ancestor, where are we going now?" The Wind Plains was vast and boundless. If one did not have a precise direction, it would be extremely difficult to find the Heavenly Spirit Lake. Faced with Xiao Chen's inquiry, Xiao Xing directly replied, "East. Go deep into the heart of the Wind Plains." The heavenly spirit lake was not in the periphery of the wind plains. Instead, it was in the central region. Hearing this, Xiao Chen did not hesitate and rushed towards the east. Originally, Xiao Chen planned to fly in the air. However, after trying it once, he instantly gave up. In the wind plains, the stronger the wind, the stronger it was. In other words, although flying was not prohibited in the wind plains, no one would be foolish enough to fly in the wind plains. This was because the wind in the sky was many times stronger than on land. Even with the black armor talisman, it was difficult to withstand it. Since he could not fly in the air, he naturally could only choose to walk. He walked all the way towards the east. The fierce winds in the wind plains covered the sky and there was no day or night. Therefore, the concept of time in the wind plains was extremely vague. Xiao Chen did not know how long he had been walking, but his surroundings, which had always remained the same, suddenly changed. In front of Xiao Chen, an extremely ordinary weed was swaying in the wind. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 698. In this wind plain that was shrouded in fierce winds, there was actually a wild grass. Moreover, this wild grass did not suffer the slightest damage under the blowing of the wind, and was still firmly growing on the ground. This scene obviously aroused Xiao Chen's curiosity. What a joke! The wind in the wind plain was something that even warriors could not withstand. How could a mere wild grass survive in such a windy wind plain? If it had been an ordinary tree, or even a large mountain, it would have been ground to dust by the strong winds of the wind plains. However, this weed had survived. While Xiao Chen was curious, at the same time, Xiao Xing's voice also sounded in his mind. Hey, this is the grass of intent. Boy, this is a good thing. Xiao Chen did not know what the grass of intent was, but soon, Xiao Xing opened his mouth to explain. The grass of intent was a very precious treasure. There were not many of them, but any warrior would be incomparably jealous of the grass of intent. Not for anything else, but because the grass of intent could help a warrior cultivate the power of concept. Whether it was sword intent, saber intent, or spear intent, the grass of intent could help a warrior cultivate the power of concept. After listening to Xiao Xing's explanation, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a touch of fiery color. How difficult it was to break through the power of concept. Xiao Chen had personally experienced this. Since he comprehended sword intent, Xiao Chen's sword intent had only reached the small success stage. This showed how difficult it was to break through the power of concept. After explaining the function of the grass of intent in detail to Xiao Chen, Xiao Xing also opened his mouth and sighed. I didn't expect that there would be grass of intent here. Boy, quickly collect this grass of intent. The grass of intent was precious, and it only appeared in places with extremely harsh environments. In the entire Sky River continent, there were only 4 places where the grass of intent had appeared, and these 4 places were the 4 great deadlands of the Sky River continent. If one were to ask where the harshest environment was in the Sky River continent, it would undoubtedly be the 4 great deadlands. And these 4 great deadlands were also the best growing environment for the meaning grass. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen naturally did not hesitate. He strode to the front of the herb of will. It looked no different from a weed, but when Xiao Chen approached the herb of will, he could clearly feel that a wave of artistic conception was constantly emitted from the herb of will. The power of concept was very mysterious and difficult to explain. However, the power of concept emitted from the herb of will did not depend on the slightest attribute. Because of this, no matter what kind of power of concept a martial artist comprehended, they could use the herb of will to cultivate. A smile appeared on his face. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen pulled out the elemental herb. Just as Xiao Chen held the elemental herb in his hand, a cold shout suddenly sounded. Boy, this elemental herb is mine. Put it down and get lost. The voice was very arrogant. Hearing this, Xiao Chen turned his head and saw 6 human martial artists striding out of the wind. The person in the lead was a pale-faced but very arrogant young man. In the Wind Plane, the perception of human martial artists would be greatly reduced. This was also because of the strong winds in the Wind Plane. Therefore, Shao Chun did not discover the existence of these people from the beginning to the end. Looking at the few people striding in front of him, Shao Chun's eyes swept across the 6 people and finally fixed on the young man in the lead. Great perfection Dao querying realm. This young man's cultivation was obviously not in Shao Chun's eyes. However, looking at his appearance, he should be a disciple of a big family. Facing Shao Chun's gaze, the young man did not care at all. His eyes were fixed on the elemental herb in Shao Chun's hand from the beginning to the end. There was a touch of unconcealable passion in his eyes. The elemental herb. He did not expect to be lucky enough to obtain an elemental herb in this experiential learning in the Wind Plane. It should be known that the elemental herb was very precious. Moreover, with the continuous stream of people entering the Wind Plane for experiential learning, the elemental herb in the periphery of the Wind Plane was basically extinct. Now that he was able to encounter one, it could be said that his luck was off the charts. In his heart, he had already regarded this elemental herb as his own. As for Shao Chun, the young man did not care at all. The young man's name was Tang Tianbao. He was the young master of the Tang family, one of the 3 big families in the wind-suppressing city. The Tang family was very powerful in the wind-suppressing city. Moreover, the Tang family and the city lord's office of the wind-suppressing city had always been on good terms. Therefore, in the wind-suppressing city, very few people would provoke the Tang family. Even the disciples of the big holy sects would not be too presumptuous when facing the Tang family. It was precisely because of the status of the Tang family in the wind-suppressing city that Tang Tianbao's character was arrogant and domineering. This time, because the wind ghost attack had just ended, Tang Tianbao's father, who was the current master of the Tang family, felt that the danger in the Wind Plane was greatly reduced. Therefore, he arranged for Tang Tianbao to enter the Wind Plane for experiential learning. Originally, Tang Tianbao had already been experiential learning in the Wind Plane for several days, but he did not gain much. Now that he saw this elemental herb, how could he not be excited? Previously, Tang Tianbao had sized up Shao Chun. Seeing that Shao Chun was not wearing any holy sect disciple's uniform, Tang Tianbao did not have the slightest concern in his heart. He only regarded Shao Chun as a rogue cultivator who was relatively lucky. His gaze was fixed on the elemental herb for a long time. Finally, Tang Tianbao's gaze finally moved up and fell on Shao Chun. His expression was incomparably arrogant as he said, "You can get lost in the direction of the elemental herb." Hearing Tang Tianbao's words, Shao Chun smiled coldly and said, "I found this elemental herb first. Everything should be first come, first served, right?" All the way from the Tianqian continent, Shao Chun was no longer a little kid who did not know anything. Although he was still very young, Shao Chun could be said to be completely experienced. Therefore, Shao Chun was very clear about what Tang Tianbao was thinking. It was nothing more than wanting to snatch the elemental herb by force. However, Tang Tianbao's thinking was too simple. Since it had already fallen into his hands, how could Shao Chun obediently hand over the elemental herb? Moreover, although Tang Tianbao's side had 6 people, Tang Tianbao's cultivation was only at the great completion of the Dao querying realm. In Shao Chun's eyes, he was no different from an ant. As for the other 5 people, 4 of them were at the great completion of the Dao querying realm, and 1 was at the great completion of the Dao querying realm. This kind of strength was not considered invincible to Shao Chun. Therefore, Shao Chun naturally would not hand over the elemental herb. Hearing Shao Chun's words, a murderous intent suddenly flashed in Tang Tianbao's eyes. He said in a cold tone, "Not handing it over? Kid, are you looking for death? This is the Wind Plane. Even if you die, no one will know." Tang Tianbao's words were filled with a strong sense of threat. Hearing this, Shao Qin smiled indifferently and said, "That's right. This is the wind plane. No one will know even if I die. So, are you sure you want to snatch it?" Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendation. End of chapter. Chapter 699. Tang family was one of the three major families of suppressing Wind City. Ordinary warriors couldn't afford to provoke Tang family. However, it didn't have much effect on Shao Qin. It was impossible for Shao Qin to be afraid of them. It had been almost 10 years since Shao Qin had come to the Tianhe continent. He had started off as an outsider with no foundation. Now, he had gradually grown up and had his own supporters in the Tianhe continent and the ancient holy state. The strongest person in Tang family was only a semi-sage. Even if they had more than one semi-sage, what was Tang family compared to Tianfeng Xingzong? Shao Qin was the direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. Naturally, he wouldn't be afraid of Tang family. Even without mentioning Tianfeng Xingzong, Shao Qin had already attracted the attention of some big figures in the ancient sacred sect. So, would Tang family dare to touch Shao Qin? With a background that completely crushed Tang family, Shao Qin didn't care about Tang Tianbao's threat at all. Of course, Tang Tianbao naturally didn't know Shao Qin's identity. Otherwise, how could he provoke Shao Qin? After all, he wasn't an idiot. Tang Tianbao had no intention to have any conflict with Tang Tianbao. However, after hearing Shao Qin's words, Tang Tianbao was burning with anger. This guy actually dared to threaten him. The expression on his face became more and more gloomy. In this regard, Shao Qin didn't care and said indifferently, "I have no intention to fight with you. However, I found this herb of intent first. It should be mine." He had no intention to fight with Tang Tianbao. Of course, it was obviously impossible to hand over the herb of intent. After saying that, Shao Qin put the herb of intent into his storage ring, then turned around and prepared to leave. Shao Qin naturally wouldn't take such a trivial matter to heart. It was also impossible for him to find trouble with Tang family afterwards. Just as he was about to leave, Tang Tianbao angrily shouted, "Want to leave? Dream on. Kill this brat for me." He was completely furious. Hearing this, Shao Qin, who had already turned around, sighed helplessly. He didn't want to offend Tang family. It wasn't because he was afraid, but because it was troublesome. However, Tang Tianbao was courting death. There was no other way. Shao Qin had repeatedly made concessions, but Tang Tianbao still recklessly chose to attack. After hearing Tang Tianbao's words, the 5 Tang family guards behind him. These 5 guards were not the guards of Tang Mansion, but Tang Tianbao's personal guards. It could be said that they were Tang Tianbao's confidants. They usually followed Tang Tianbao and showed off their strength. Now that they heard Tang Tianbao's words, they naturally obeyed. The 5 guards attacked. The guard with the cultivation base of Dao Confirmation Realm sneered, "Brat, you really don't know what's good for you. My young master intended to spare your life, but you don't know what's good for you. I'm sorry. Remember, be smart in your next life. Don't offend people you can't afford to offend." The guard leader looked like a lackey. Hearing his words, Shao Qin sighed softly and said, "Yes, be smart in your next life. Don't offend people you can't afford to offend." Shao Qin repeated the guard leader's words. Obviously, these people didn't understand the meaning of Shao Qin's words. They thought that Shao Qin had admitted defeat. However, before they could rejoice, Shao Qin's storage ring flashed. The ink dragon sword instantly appeared in his hand. He slashed at one of the guards. The square sky sword shadow was directly displayed. The sword light that filled the sky immediately tore the guard into pieces. Although the cultivation base of these 5 guards was higher than Shao Qin's, in terms of combat strength, how could they compare to Shao Qin? Shao Qin was now a Dao Confirmation Realm expert, but it was no exaggeration to say that Shao Qin was already an invincible existence in the Dao Confirmation Realm. Facing these ordinary Dao Confirmation Realm cultivators, It was as easy as chopping vegetables. He killed a guard with a single slash. Seeing this, the other 4 guards were stunned. None of them thought that Xiao Chen would dare to take the initiative to kill. However, Xiao Chen obviously didn't give them much time to think. After killing one of them with a single slash, Xiao Chen didn't stop. He took a step forward and attacked another guard. It was still a single slash. The sharp sword intent didn't give the guard any time to react. He was killed by Xiao Chen with a single slash. After killing another guard, everyone started to panic. However, it was obviously too late. It didn't take too much effort. Except for the guard leader, who was at the perfect Dao confirmation realm, who wasted some energy, the rest were all killed by Xiao Chen with a single slash. In less than 100 breaths, Tang Tianbao's 5 guards were all killed by Xiao Chen. Tang Tianbao was scared out of his wits when he saw this scene. Tang Tianbao's expression changed drastically. Seeing Xiao Chen turn around, Tang Tianbao kept retreating. His eyes were filled with horror. "What are you doing? I'm the young master of the Tang family. If you kill me, the Tang family won't let you go." He didn't expect Xiao Chen to be so strong. The 5 guards were killed in an instant. Tang Tianbao, who was completely terrified, didn't have the slightest thought of fighting with Xiao Chen. He could only threaten Xiao Chen with his identity. However, Tang Tianbao was obviously stupid again. Since he dared to kill, why would Xiao Chen care about Tang Tianbao's identity? Although Xiao Chen was slightly stunned when Tang Tianbao said that he was the young master of the Tang family, he quickly returned to normal. "The young master of the Tang family? I'm sorry, but this identity isn't enough to let you live," Xiao Chen said indifferently as he walked up to Tang Tianbao. Without any hesitation, Xiao Chen sent Tang Tianbao's head flying with his sword. After killing Tang Tianbao, Xiao Chen searched through everyone's storage rings. He didn't find anything good. The only thing he found was a black armor talisman on Tang Tianbao's body. Xiao Chen was naturally satisfied and kept it. To Xiao Chen, Tang Tianbao was just a small interlude. So what if he killed him? He continued on his journey. While Xiao Chen continued to explore the core area of the Wind Plains, in a wind ghost village in the Wind Plains, a Saint Blood Wind Ghost said coldly, "These humans deserve to die. They actually dared to enter the Wind Plains on such a large scale. Do they think that the Wind Plains will be safe after the Wind Ghost attack?" The Saint Blood Wind Ghost said coldly. If Xiao Chen was here, he would definitely recognize this Saint Blood Wind Ghost because he was one of the Saint Blood Wind Ghosts that followed Lu Tianming to attack the Wind Suppression City. At that time, he seemed to have fought with Lu Tianming. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 700. The Wind Ghost was the only creature that could survive in the Wind Plains, and their residences were usually built underground. This was because only underground could protect them from the gales. Although the Wind Ghost clan did not fear the gales of the Wind Plains, it was clearly impossible for them to build their residences above ground. This was because the gales of the Wind Plains would instantly tear them to shreds. As a result, the Wind Ghost Village was basically built underground. There were underground tunnels and cave-like rooms. This was how the Wind Ghost's residences were constructed. At this moment, in the Wind Ghost Village, the Saint Blood Wind Ghost was furious because of the large-scale invasion of humans. Many people felt that the Wind Plains was much less dangerous after the Wind Ghost attack had been repelled. As a result, many people formed groups and entered the Wind Plains to train. After this great defeat, the Wind Ghost clan did indeed need some time to settle down. However, the anger in its heart made the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost decide to attack the humans that had entered the Wind Plains. As a Sacred Blood Wind Ghost, its status in the Wind Ghost tribe was clearly not low. A trace of killing intent flashed through its eyes as the Sacred Blood Wind Ghost spoke viciously. "Humans, do you think the Wind Plains is safe right now? This time, I will definitely make all of you humans that have entered the Wind Plains die here." As it spoke, the wind ghost gave the order to attack the human warriors in the wind plains. The wind ghosts, who had just finished a great battle, moved out once again. However, compared to the wind ghosts' attack, the number of wind ghosts this time was obviously much smaller. However, it was definitely not something that the humans who entered the wind plains could resist. No one had expected that the wind ghost group would launch an attack when it was supposed to be the safest time. Moreover, it was led by a sacred blood wind ghost. Xiao Chun did not know about the wind ghost's actions. At this time, Xiao Chun had gradually entered the depths of the wind plains after a few days of traveling. Along the way, Xiao Chen's harvest was also not bad. Along the way, he encountered many treasures of heaven and earth, and even found a stalk of herb of providence. Xiao Chun already knew how precious the Italian herb was. Therefore, Xiao Chun was very happy to be able to obtain 2 Italian herbs. However, the amount of Italian herbs was too small and difficult to encounter. This inevitably made Xiao Chun somewhat disappointed. But according to Xiao Xing's words, the herb of providence in the outer area was almost extinct. After all, there would be human warriors going to the wind plains for training tomorrow. Who would let go of a treasure like the herb of providence? However, as he continued to go deeper, when he reached the core area of the wind plains, there were few traces of people there. As a result, if Xiao Chun was lucky, he might be able to obtain a great harvest. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen's mood improved a little. Xiao Xing was right. Almost all of the outer regions had been plundered clean by human warriors. However, very few human warriors had entered the core region. There was bound to be something to be gained there. Full of expectations, Xiao Chun rushed towards the core area of the wind plains. As he went deeper, the wind in the wind plains became stronger and stronger. In the end, Xiao Chun had no choice but to use the black armor talisman because the defensive treasures alone were not enough to resist the wind. But fortunately, Xiao Chun had a total of 7 black armor talismans. He was not afraid that the black armor talismans would be used up in a short period of time. Under the protection of the black armor talisman, Xiao Chun was no longer afraid of the wind in the wind plains. As a saint-grade talisman, the black armor talisman was the nemesis of the wind plains. If it were not for the fact that the black armor talisman was extremely difficult to refine and was extremely expensive, the wind plains would not be considered a place of death for human warriors. Thinking about it, even Tang Tianbao, the young master of the Tang family, only had 1 black armor talisman. This showed how precious the black armor talisman was. It was also because of this that many ordinary warriors did not have the ability to obtain a black armor talisman. When they went to the wind plains, they could only rely on some defensive treasures to travel around the periphery of the wind plains. Because of this, the wind plains had always been inaccessible. With the protection of the black armor talisman, Xiao Chun advanced all the way to the depths of the wind plains. However, this peace did not last for too long. One day later, Xiao Chun was attacked by a group of wind ghosts. Over 100 wind ghosts and Xiao Chun collided head-on. These wind ghosts were the lowest-level wind ghosts. Their intelligence was almost 0. As soon as they saw Xiao Chun, the group of wind ghosts roared and rushed forward. It had been almost 10 days since Xiao Chun entered the wind plains. This was the first time he had encountered a group of wind ghosts. However, it was only 100 ordinary wind ghosts. This was not much of a threat to Xiao Chun. Unsheathing the ink dragon sword, Xiao Chun easily killed the 100 or so wind ghosts. Ordinary wind ghosts were not very strong. Only when they reached the level of a wind ghost king, a wind ghost saint king, or a saint blood wind ghost would a wind ghost undergo a qualitative change. Otherwise, ordinary wind ghosts were almost equivalent to stronger wild beasts. After killing the group of wind ghosts, Xiao Chun did not pay too much attention to it. He continued on his way. After all, encountering wind ghosts in the wind plains was a very normal thing. However, what Xiao Chen did not expect was that along the way, Xiao Chen would constantly encounter groups of wind ghosts. The number of wind ghosts varied. The largest group Xiao Chen encountered was a group of 500 wind ghosts. Encountering groups of wind ghosts so frequently, and seeing that these wind ghosts were all rushing towards the outer regions, Xiao Chen began to feel suspicious. After all, logically speaking, after the wind ghost attack, the wind ghosts in the wind plains should be at their quietest. During this period, the wind ghosts would not attack humans. But now, these wind ghosts seemed to have turned out in full force. This made Xiao Chen suspicious. After encountering 5 or 6 groups of wind ghosts in a row, Xiao Chen asked doubtfully, "Old ancestor, the actions of these wind ghosts are a bit strange." Hearing this, Xiao Xing also nodded in agreement. "It is indeed a bit strange. You should be careful. You can deal with small groups of wind ghosts, but if you encounter tens of thousands of wind ghosts, it will be dangerous." Xiao Chen did not care about small groups of wind ghosts, but large groups of wind ghosts were no joke. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen also nodded seriously. Indeed, since he had encountered 5 or 6 groups of wind ghosts in a row, he had to be more careful. Things were a bit strange, and Xiao Chen had to be 120% vigilant. Unfortunately, after intentionally avoiding several groups of wind ghosts, Xiao Chen encountered a wind ghost with sacred blood. This sacred blood wind ghost was acting alone and did not group with the wind ghost. Xiao Chen and it collided head-on. The two of them looked at each other, and for a moment, both of them recognized each other's identity. The sacred blood wind ghost's face darkened, and it looked at Xiao Chen and shouted coldly, "Human, is that you? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 701. The wind ghost recognized Xiao Chen, and at the same time, Xiao Chen also recognized him. Although he didn't know the name of this sacred blood wind ghost, Xiao Chen knew that in the previous battle, this sacred blood wind ghost had fought fiercely with Lu Tianming. He didn't expect to encounter a sacred blood wind ghost here. Following the sacred blood wind ghost's cold shout, Xiao Chen's killing intent surged. When a human and a wind ghost met, there was naturally nothing to say, only a battle. Sensing the killing intent in Xiao Chen's eyes, the sacred blood wind ghost was not stupid, and its first thought was to escape. What a joke! Xiao Chen had fought Wu Qi, and Wu Qi was a direct descendant of the sacred blood wind ghost, who was extremely powerful. If Xiao Chen could fight Wu Qi, then it was obviously not a match for him. The sacred blood wind ghost's intelligence was not lower than a human's, so it didn't hesitate and immediately chose to escape. Seeing this, Xiao Xing hurriedly said, "Boy, kill it. The sacred blood wind ghost has a lot of good things on it." The wind ghost's corpse was indeed very valuable, which was why the ancient sacred sect always bought wind ghost corpses. In the previous battle, Wu Qi's corpse had also been taken away by the ancient sacred sect. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen naturally didn't have any doubts. Since Xiao Xing said that the sacred blood wind ghost's corpse would greatly benefit him, then Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't let it leave. Moreover, after taking the marrow-cleansing saint pill, his cultivation had broken through from the initial stage of the Dao validation realm to the minor stage of the Dao validation realm, and his strength had increased a lot. As such, Xiao Chen naturally had more confidence in killing the sacred blood wind ghost. Unsheathing the ink dragon sword, Xiao Chen directly used the ferocious tiger stampede. Taking a step, Xiao Chen instantly caught up to the sacred blood wind ghost. Originally, the sacred blood wind ghost didn't plan to fight Xiao Chen, but now that Xiao Chen was blocking its path, its face sank, and its bloodline power immediately burned as it clawed at Xiao Chen. Without any superfluous words, the two immediately engaged in battle. However, the sacred blood wind ghost fighting Xiao Chen, clearly, it didn't have the chance to fight to the death, and was constantly looking for an opportunity to escape. Xiao Chen had long seen that the sacred blood wind ghost wanted to escape, so how could he let it do as it wished? He firmly entangled it, and the ink dragon's sword in his hand constantly slashed out, and the sound of metal colliding constantly rang out. Obviously, the sacred blood wind ghost didn't want to let him go. Being entangled by Shao Qin, the sacred blood wind ghost's face became increasingly gloomy. After another head-on collision with Shao Qin, the sacred blood wind ghost coldly shouted, "Human, don't push your luck." In the sacred blood wind ghost's opinion, it originally didn't want to fight to the death with Shao Qin, but Shao Qin kept pestering it, so even a clay figurine would have some temper. However, facing the sacred blood wind ghost's cold shout, Shao Qin replied without batting an eyelid. "Push my luck? What a joke. Die." Whether it was a human killing a wind ghost or a wind ghost killing a human, it was a matter of course. Moreover, Shao Xing also said that the sacred blood wind ghost would greatly benefit him. Therefore, Shao Qin was even more merciless. As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Qin's body shone with golden light. The tempered battle body had been pushed to the extreme. With the help of the marrow-cleansing Saint Elixir, Shao Qin's tempered battle body had also been improved. It had vaguely reached the limit of the first layer of the golden armor realm. The improvement of the tempered battle body gave Shao Qin the confidence to take the sacred blood wind ghost's attacks head-on. Under the golden light, Shao Qin and the sacred blood wind ghost fought fiercely. The more they fought, the more frightened the sacred blood wind ghost became. Shao Qin's strength was too great. Not only was he not weaker than it, he was even slightly stronger. In a face-to-face confrontation, with the power of the tempered battle body, Shao Qin gradually gained the upper hand. In terms of strength, he had already suppressed the sacred blood wind ghost. In this way, with the powerful attacks of the ink dragon sword in his hand, Shao Qin gradually gained the upper hand in the battle. Using the square sky sword shadows filled the sky, and the sacred blood wind ghost struggled to deal with them. On his green skin, there were deep wounds that revealed his bones. Fresh blood was flowing out from the wounds. As the battle continued, the sacred blood wind ghost felt that death was approaching it more and more. It wanted to escape, but unfortunately, Shao Qin did not give it the slightest chance. It knew that if this continued, it would be killed by Shao Qin sooner or later. In fact, before the battle began, the sacred blood wind ghost had already admitted that it was no match for Shao Qin, and now it seemed that this was indeed the case. As its injuries worsened, Shao Qin's attacks became fiercer and fiercer, and its stamina gradually ran out. At the last moment, the sacred blood wind ghost begged for mercy. "Human, there is no great enmity between us. Let me go. I am a sacred blood wind ghost. If you kill me, my father will not let you go. In the Wind Plains, do you want to provoke the pursuit of a wind ghost king? Let me go, and I promise that I will not pursue today's matter." The sacred blood wind ghost's father was a wind ghost king, but their ancestor was a wind ghost saint king. Hearing its words, Shao Qin ignored it. What a joke, let it go, how could that be possible? At this point, how could Shao Qin stop if he did not kill the sacred blood wind ghost? As for its father, Shao Qin was not a match for a wind ghost king, but he was not present at the moment. His attacks did not weaken in the slightest. Seeing that its words had no effect at all, and Shao Qin's killing intent did not decrease in the slightest, the sacred blood wind ghost's face was already filled with despair. It could no longer tangle with Shao Qin. With a slash of his sword, Shao Qin successfully sent one of the sacred blood wind ghost's arms flying. The intense pain made the sacred blood wind ghost shriek. As the sacred blood wind ghost shrieked, Shao Qin successfully grasped the opportunity. He pointed a finger and directly used the Ganjiang finger sword. A blood-red sword light flashed, and under the terrified gaze of the wind ghost, the blood-red sword light pierced through its forehead like lightning. A finger-sized bloody hole pierced through the sacred blood wind ghost's forehead. Blood slowly flowed out from it, and the light in its eyes quickly faded. Its vitality also quickly disappeared. With a bang, the sacred blood-wind ghost's body fell backwards. He had finally succeeded in killing the sacred blood-wind ghost. This was also the first sacred blood-wind ghost that Xiao Chen had killed. Exhaling a mouthful of turbid air, Xiao Chen walked up to the sacred blood-wind ghost's corpse with the ink dragon sword in hand and asked curiously, "Ancestor, what benefits does this guy's corpse bring? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations." End of chapter. Chapter 702. After finally killing the Saint Blood-Wind Ghost, Xiao Chen naturally couldn't wait to find out what benefits the Saint Blood-Wind Ghost would bring. After all, Xiao Chen had expended a lot of effort to kill the Saint Blood-Wind Ghost. Faced with Xiao Chen's question, Xiaoxing didn't keep him in suspense this time and spoke indifferently. The Wind Ghost's body contains something called the Wind Soul, and the Wind Soul is the main ingredient to refine the Origin Wind Pill. He patiently explained to Xiao Chen. First, the Wind Soul. To put it bluntly, the Wind Soul was the soul of the Wind Ghost. As for the Origin Wind Pill, it was actually a very special pill that could only be refined with the Wind Soul. Its main function was to temper the body and meridians. In fact, tens of millions of years ago, the human ancestors began to notice that although the gale in the wind plane was extremely dangerous, it also had great benefits for human ancient martial art practitioners, and that was to temper the physical body and meridians. However, everyone knew that the gales in the wind plane were too powerful and couldn't temper the body at all. This was because even a saint wouldn't be able to last long in the wind plane without any protection. There were clearly such great benefits, but they couldn't make use of it because it was too powerful. This made the human ancestors rather unwilling to accept. It was precisely because of this unwillingness that the human ancestors began to research. As the only creature that could survive in the wind plane, the Wind Ghost naturally became the most important subject of research. Under the painstaking research of countless outstanding alchemists, the Origin Wind Pill was finally born. Using the Wind Ghost's Wind Soul in addition to some other natural treasures, the Origin Wind Pill could be refined. Because the Origin Wind Pill was mainly refined with a fragment of the Wind Ghost's soul, it had a very good effect on tempering the body of a cultivator. Moreover, the higher the grade of the Wind Soul used, the more obvious the effects of the Origin Wind Pill would be. For example, if the Saint Blood Wind Ghost's soul was refined into the Origin Wind Pill, the effects would definitely be of great benefit to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen honestly told Xiao Chen about the Wind Soul and the Origin Wind Pill. Hearing this, Xiao Chen naturally couldn't help but feel excited. However, in the end, Xiao Chen said somewhat unhappily, "Ancestor, since the Wind Soul is so good, why didn't you tell me earlier? I killed so many wind ghosts on the way here. If I took their souls then..." Xiao Chen complained that Xiaoxing didn't tell him earlier. However, before Xiao Chen could finish his words, Xiaoxing unhappily said, "Boy, what's so pitiful about those ordinary wind ghosts' wind souls? Even if they were refined into the Origin Wind Pill, they would be nothing but trash." The reason why Xiaoxing didn't mention it before was clearly because he didn't care about the wind souls of the ordinary wind ghost. Using such wind souls to refine the elemental wind pill was, in Xiaoxing's opinion, a complete waste of heavenly treasures. Facing Xiaoxing's answer, Xiao Chen was speechless. He couldn't help but curse in his heart, "You don't care, but I do. Truly, a man with a full stomach doesn't know the hunger of a starving man." Xiaoxing's standards were very high, but Xiao Chen was different. Even a mosquito's leg was meat. After hearing Xiaoxing's introduction of the Origin Wind Pill, Xiao Chen felt that if he had enough Origin Wind Pills, then breaking through to the second layer of the tempered battle body was not impossible. Just think about it. The first layer of the tempered battle body was already so terrifying. It was obvious that it would be of great help to Xiao Chen. If he could break through to the second layer of the tempered battle body, then how powerful would Xiao Chen's physical strength be? Xiao Chen felt somewhat unhappy, but there was nothing he could do. According to the method taught by Xiaoxing, he quickly collected the sacred blood wind ghost's wind soul. Using some special methods, the sacred blood wind ghost's wind soul turned into a round bead in Xiao Chen's hand. It was about the size of a fist. After putting it into his storage ring, Xiao Chen continued on his journey. He still couldn't refine the origin wind pill. After all, Xiao Chen didn't have the other heavenly treasures on him. However, according to Xiao Xing, the key to refining the origin wind pill was the wind soul. As for the other supplementary ingredients, they weren't anything rare. As long as he left the wind plains, he could find any medicine shop and buy them. Speaking of the other supplementary ingredients, Xiao Chen suddenly remembered the pill formula for the origin wind pill. Xiao Xing knew that Xiao Chen was an alchemist. Although his cultivation level wasn't high, it was more than enough for him to refine the origin wind pill. However, Xiao Chen suddenly realized that he didn't know the pill formula for the origin wind pill. Ancestor, if I don't know the pill formula for the origin wind pill, how do I refine it? It was naturally best to refine the origin wind pill by himself. If he asked other alchemists to help him refine the pill, then after the pill was refined, the other party would take a commission. And this commission wasn't low. Generally, it was 30%, and some could even go up to 50%. In other words, if the sacred blood wind ghost's wind soul could be used to refine 2 origin wind pills, then after the pill was refined, the alchemist would take one of the pills. With such a high commission, Xiao Chen naturally wasn't willing to give it to others for free. Moreover, Xiao Chen himself was an alchemist. Although Xiao Chen's focus had always been on martial cultivation, since he had this skill, why would he give it to others for free? Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Xing was speechless. He smiled and said, "You really are stupid. Since this ancestor said such words, then I naturally know the pill formula for the origin wind pill." Xiao Xing wasn't an alchemist, but he did know the pill formula for the origin wind pill. Hearing this, Xiao Chen let out a sigh of relief. He smiled and said, "So that's how it is. So that's how it is." Since he had the pill formula, then it was easy to handle. The matter of the origin wind pill could only be put aside for the time being. In the wind plane, there was no condition to refine the pill. In the next few days, Xiao Chen went all the way to the depths of the wind plane. As he went deeper and deeper into the wind plane, the surrounding wind became stronger and stronger. Fortunately, Xiao Chen had enough black armor talismans on him, so he wasn't afraid of the wind's attack. He had already completely entered the core area of the wind plane. According to Xiao Xing, he wasn't far from the heavenly spiritual pool. Soon, he would reach the heavenly spiritual pool. However, at this moment, in a wind ghost tribe in the wind plane, a tall and burly wind ghost king with dark skin cursed angrily with a face full of killing intent. "Human, lowly human, you actually dared to kill this king's son. If this king doesn't tear you to pieces, this king will not rest." As he spoke, a terrifying pressure suddenly erupted from the wind ghost king's body. For a moment, the wind ghost tribe and the wind ghost tribe all prostrated themselves on the ground in fear. This wind ghost king was obviously extremely angry. He was the father of the sacred blood wind ghost that Xiao Chen had killed. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 703. It was easy to imagine how furious the wind ghost king would be when its son was killed. Furthermore, it had basically confirmed that the killer was Xiao Chen through the information sent back by many wind ghost kings. After all, Xiao Chen had encountered many wind ghosts on his way. Based on Xiao Chen's tracks, the only person who could possibly kill the saint-blooded wind ghost was him. After all, very few human cultivators would enter the core of the wind plains. Xiao Chen was the only one. The Wind Ghost King was neither unfamiliar with Xiao Chen nor familiar with him. Due to Xiao Chen's astonishing performance in the battle outside Wind Suppression City, he had indeed attracted the attention of many Wind Ghost Saint rulers and Wind Ghost Kings. He was a young genius of the human race. After confirming the killer of its son, the Wind Ghost King's furious voice rang through the entire tribe of wind ghosts underground. Search. Find that human even if you have to dig 3 feet into the ground. Under the furious roar of the Wind Ghost King, countless wind ghosts swarmed out and began to search for Xiao Chen. While these wind ghosts were searching for Xiao Chen had already approached the Heaven's Soul Pool. Xiao Chen clearly had no idea that he was being pursued by a Wind Ghost King. He had already entered the core of the Wind Plains. In front of Xiao Chen, a bottomless crack had suddenly appeared in the barren wind plains that stretched as far as the eye could see. It was as if someone had slashed it open with a sword. In the wind plains, the crack extended for tens of thousands of kilometers. It was pitch black below, and it was impossible to see what was inside. Standing at the edge of the crack, Xiao Chen looked at the crack in front of him with a grave expression. Xiao Xing had already confirmed that the Heaven's Soul Pool was within the crack, because Xiao Xing had already sensed the aura of the Heaven's Soul Pool. Phew, it's time to go all out. Xiao Chen let out a sigh of relief and eventually jumped into the crack of the abyss. The Heaven's Soul Pool was one of the necessary conditions for Xiao Xing's resurrection. Most importantly, without the Heaven's Soul Pool, Xiao Xing's remnant soul would not be able to hold on for long, let alone be resurrected. It would dissipate very quickly. In order to resurrect Xiao Xing, Xiao Chen chose to go all out. He jumped into the crack and fell rapidly. Previously, Xiao Xing had told Xiao Chen that there was a power of law in the crack, and this power of law prohibited cultivators from flying. Therefore, it was obviously unrealistic to rely on flying to reach the bottom of the crack. It was also because of this reason that Xiao Chen hesitated for a long time. After all, if he could not fly, it meant that Xiao Chen could only fall to the bottom of the cliff like an ordinary person. He did not know how deep the crack was. Although he was a cultivator, he would still be in danger of dying under such an impact. Fortunately, Xiao Chen had the tempered battle body. With the help of the tempered battle body, Xiao Chen's physical strength was far beyond that of an ordinary cultivator. With his tyrannical body, Xiao Chen might be able to withstand the destructive force of the rapid fall. It was also because of Xiao Chen's tempered battle body that Xiao Xing agreed to let Xiao Chen give it a try. Otherwise, even if Xiao Xing disappeared from the world, he would never let Xiao Chen do this. The speed of the fall was getting faster and faster. Strong winds constantly blew past Xiao Xing's body, and the things in front of Xiao Chen's eyes madly streaked past him. After falling rapidly for more than 100 breaths, Xiao Chen finally vaguely saw the bottom of the crack. Almost at the same time, Xiao Xing's voice rang in Xiao Chen's mind. "Boy, now is the time. Use the tempered battle body." Only by relying on the tempered battle body could one withstand such a terrifying force. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen naturally did not hesitate and immediately used the tempered battle body. The golden light was dazzling, and then there was a loud bang. It was as if a meteor had hit the ground. The earth shook, smoke and dust rose, and a terrifying shock wave roared out along the crack like a wave. In the thick smoke and dust, Xiao Chen's figure could not be seen at all. After about half an hour, the smoke and dust at the bottom of the gale slowly dissipated. At the same time, a deep pit that was enough to make one tremble with fear appeared in sight. The pit was very deep, and it could be said to be bottomless. The surroundings were strangely quiet. Suddenly, an arm stretched out from the pit amidst this extremely quiet environment, and it grabbed the edge of the pit. After that, a young man who was covered in dust and covered in blood climbed out of the pit. The young man was naturally Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen could be said to have walked past the gates of hell from that fall. How should he describe it? It felt as if he had been struck by an almighty Tao Emperor realm expert. The bones in his entire body were on the verge of falling apart, and his skin and muscles were directly torn apart. Xiao Chen forced himself out of the pit with his last breath, and then he fell unconscious. "Boy, are you all right?" Sensing that Xiao Chen's current situation was very bad, Xiao Xing asked with concern. However, Xiao Chen, who had fallen unconscious, obviously could not hear him. After not getting a reply from Xiao Chen for a long time, Xiao Xing personally checked Xiao Chen's body. In the end, after confirming that Xiao Chen's life was not in danger, Xiao Xing heaved a sigh of relief. Xiao Chen's injuries were very serious. This was true, but it was not enough to threaten Xiao Chen's life. After confirming this, Xiao Xing could not help but sigh. As expected of the number 1 body refining technique, the 100-tempered battle body is really shocking. Xiao Chen's survival was entirely due to the 100-tempered battle body. Firstly, the 100-tempered battle body had increased Xiao Chen's physical strength. Secondly, the 100-tempered battle body had also greatly increased Xiao Chen's vitality. Xiao Xing also praised the 100-tempered battle body, which was known as the strongest body refining technique in the Tianhe continent. After confirming that Xiao Chen's life was not in danger, Xiao Xing secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The next step was to wait for Xiao Chen to wake up. At the bottom of the quiet canyon, Xiao Chen lay there like a dead man, covering his face with his hands. 3 days passed like that before Xiao Chen slowly woke up. Xiao Chen struggled to open his eyes. The sharp pain in his body made him grin and cry out in pain. This was really a desperate situation. If he was not careful, the consequences would be unimaginable. Xiao Chen struggled to sit up. After 3 days, the wounds on his body had basically stopped bleeding. However, the sharp pain in his body was still unbearable for Xiao Chen. Originally, Xiao Chen wanted to check his injuries, but first, he suddenly felt that the black armor talisman he had used before had disappeared. The power of the black armor talisman had been exhausted. In other words, at this time, he did not have the protection of the black armor talisman at all. As a result, the strong wind in the wind plane was enough to tear him to pieces in an instant. Xiao Chen's expression suddenly changed. He hurriedly prepared to take out the black armor talisman, but at this time, Xiao Xing's voice sounded. "Boy, you finally woke up. Please collect, please vote, please recommend." This chapter ends. Chapter 704. The power of the black armor talisman had already been exhausted. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen paused. At the same time, Xiao Xing said with a smile, "Boy, there is no wind at the bottom of the valley. Otherwise, you would have died long ago." Previously, Xiao Chen had been unconscious for 3 days. During these 3 days, Xiao Xing was extremely puzzled by this canyon crack. It was located in the core area of the wind plane, but there was not a trace of wind in this canyon crack. It was simply too amazing. Logically speaking, the wind that enveloped the entire wind plane should be pervasive, but now there was not the slightest trace of wind. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen was also somewhat stunned. Previously, he did not observe carefully. Now, Xiao Chen realized that there was not the slightest trace of wind in this canyon crack. He did not expect that there would be such a place in the wind plane. He did not understand why there was no wind in this canyon crack. However, this was not important. For now, Xiao Chen still needed to quickly heal his injuries and then search for the heavenly spiritual pool. After all, this was the purpose of Xiao Chen's trip. There were few people in the canyon crack, and there was no trace of the wind ghost. This was good news for Xiao Chen. At least he could focus on healing his injuries. After swallowing the healing elixir, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on the ground. Although his life was not in danger, at this moment, Xiao Chen's body was not in good condition. His injuries were still very serious. With his eyes closed, Xiao Chen spent 2 days recovering from most of his injuries with the help of healing pills. Although he had not fully recovered yet, he was able to move around without any major hindrances. Thus, Xiao Chen did not waste any more time and immediately began to search for the heavenly spiritual pool. According to Xiao Xing, the heavenly spiritual pool was at the bottom of this canyon crack. Using a secret method, Xiao Xing could feel the aura of the heavenly spiritual pool and determine its general location. Under Xiao Xing's guidance, Xiao Chen walked all the way into the depths of the canyon. As he walked, he found that the canyon was extremely deep. After walking for 2 days, they still had not reached the Heavenly Soul Pool. The length of this canyon had completely exceeded Xiao Chen's expectations. Some people even suspected that the canyon crack ran through the entire wind plains. If that was the case, then it would be too exaggerated. One had to know that the wind plains was not small. If it could run through the entire wind plains, then one could imagine the length of the canyon crack. It was as if there was no end to it. However, Xiao Xing could sense that the aura of the heavenly spiritual pool was getting thicker and thicker, and they were getting closer and closer. Xiao Xing sensed something. Regarding this, Xiao Chen did not have the slightest doubt. He braced himself and continued walking. Another 2 days passed. For 4 whole days, Xiao Chen and Xiao Chen had been walking slowly and forcefully at the bottom of the canyon. 4 days had passed, and it was at this time that the unchanging scene before them finally began to change. The originally narrow, desolate, and barren bottom of the canyon crack suddenly presented a completely different scene in front of Xiao Chen's eyes. The cliffs on both sides spread out without any warning. The originally narrow bottom of the valley actually formed a circular valley at the end of the valley. Although the valley was also surrounded by towering cliffs, it gave people a feeling of suddenly opening up. Not only that, but in this circular valley, there were trees and grass everywhere. Such a scene actually appeared in the Wind Plains, one of the 4 death zones of the Sky River continent. Compared to the barren Wind Plains, this place could be said to be a paradise. It was hard to imagine that such a place existed in the Wind Plains. Standing in this circular valley, Xiao Chen was stunned. He couldn't help but murmur, Boy, this is the heavenly spiritual pond. The heavenly spiritual pond can bring vitality to the earth. Only the heavenly spiritual pond can create such a place in the Wind Plains. Take a look. Compared to Xiao Chen's shock, Xiao Xing was much calmer. Following Xiao Xing's finger, Xiao Chen saw from afar that in the center of the circular valley, a pure and enormous spiritual energy soared into the sky. It seemed to transform into a barrier that enveloped the entire circular valley. Moreover, below this spiritual energy pillar, a milky white liquid was suspended in the air. This liquid was milky white and had a diameter of more than 10 meters. However, it was floating in midair. Xiao Chen had seen a spiritual pond before, but compared to the heavenly spiritual pond in front of him, it was completely dwarfed. The spiritual energy of this heavenly spiritual pond was many times richer than the spiritual pond. Facing Xiao Chen's shock, Xiao Chen's figure slowly floated out of Xiao Chen's body with a faint smile on his face. They had finally found the heavenly spiritual pond. Although the process was very difficult, the heavenly spiritual pond was right in front of them. All the previous hardships were worth it for both Xiao Chen and Xiao Xing. If Xiao Xing wanted to revive, he had to use the heavenly spiritual pond. Moreover, Xiao Xing didn't tell Xiao Chen that this heavenly spiritual pond was also a unique opportunity for Xiao Chen. As Xiao Xing, he naturally couldn't take this heavenly spiritual pond for himself. From the beginning, he had decided to use this heavenly spiritual pond to give Xiao Chen a great opportunity. Originally, with Xiao Chen's current cultivation, it was impossible for him to refine the pure spiritual energy in the heavenly spiritual pond. However, with Xiao Chen around, he naturally had a way to let Xiao Chen obtain the pure spiritual energy in this heavenly spiritual pond. He only left the energy he needed for his revival and gave the rest to Xiao Chen. He believed that as long as Xiao Chen could obtain the opportunity in this heavenly spiritual pond, his strength would definitely undergo an earth-shattering change. After being stunned for a while, Xiao Chen slowly walked towards the heavenly spiritual pond in the middle of the valley under Xiao Xing's lead. As they got closer to the heavenly spiritual pond, Xiao Chen felt that even the surrounding air was filled with spiritual energy. Just taking a breath made him feel refreshed. When they arrived in front of the heavenly spiritual pond, Shaoxing finally spoke. Boy, the energy in this heavenly spiritual pond is very large. Later, use the method I'll teach you to refine the energy. Remember, you must do it according to my method. Otherwise, the energy in this heavenly spiritual pond will instantly burst you. Shaoxing spoke. Hearing this, Xiao Chen's expression froze. He then asked in confusion, Ancestor, isn't this heavenly spiritual pond what you need to revive? If you give me all the energy in it, what will you do? He didn't expect Shaoxing to give the energy in the heavenly spiritual pond to him. Although the heavenly spiritual pond was a supreme treasure to Xiao Chen, compared to Shaoxing's revival, it wasn't worth mentioning to Xiao Chen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 705. A peerless treasure like the heavenly spiritual pool had an indescribable allure to any warrior, even a saint. It was no exaggeration to say that the heavenly spiritual pool was enough to turn father and son against each other and brothers against each other. This was not an exaggeration at all. However, although everyone wanted treasures, there were some things in Xiao Chen's heart that no treasure could compare to. That was friendship. Xiao Chen did not have many friends along the way. It could even be said that he only had a few friends. However, this did not mean that Xiao Chen was someone who did not value friendship. On the contrary, this was a reflection of Xiao Chen's importance. It was precisely because he valued friendship that it was very difficult for Xiao Chen to approve of someone. Once someone was approved by Xiao Chen would definitely treat that person with sincerity, even if he would not be completely devoted to that person. In Xiao Chen's opinion, he would give up any precious treasure for the sake of the people around him, let alone a mere heavenly spiritual pool. It was precisely because of this that Xiao Chen had never had any improper thoughts about the heavenly spiritual pool. When he heard that Shaoxing wanted to share some of the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool with him, even if Xiao Chen did not understand the heavenly spiritual pool, he knew that this was simply a godsend opportunity for him. Moreover, from Shaoxing's words, it seemed that he would help him refine the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool. This made Xiao Chen feel very touched. Seeing that Xiao Chen was silent for a long time, Shaoxing obviously guessed what he was thinking. He laughed and scolded him. What are you thinking about, kid? Hurry up and remember the method I taught you. Otherwise, you can only look at the heavenly spiritual pool. Shaoxing jokingly scolded Xiao Chen. Then, he told Xiao Chen the method to refine the heavenly spiritual pool. With Xiao Chen's cultivation, not only would he need Shaoxing's help to refine the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiao Chen would also have to follow Shaoxing's method throughout the entire process. If there were any mistakes, the energy in the heavenly spiritual pool would be enough to cause Xiao Chen to explode in an instant. Shaoxing did not explain too much to Xiao Chen, nor did he say any emotional words. He only taught Xiao Chen the method to refine the heavenly spiritual pool in detail. Then, he let Xiao Chen ponder over it himself. As for Shaoxing, he came before the heavenly spiritual pool and casually slashed it. The pool, which was originally a hole, was instantly divided into two. Xiao Chen. 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. The 80% was for Shaoxing to use for his resurrection, while the 20% was for Xiao Chen. Don't think that Shaoxing was too stingy. He only gave Xiao Chen 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. This was already the limit that Xiao Chen could bear at the moment. The spiritual qi in the heavenly spirit pool was so dense that Xiao Chen was able to refine 20% of it, which was already a feat that went against the natural order of things. If it had not been for Shaoxing's help, it would have been impossible. After leaving 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool for Xiao Chen, Shaoxing took the lead and began to refine the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Rather than refining, it was more accurate to say that Xiao Xing merged his remnant soul with the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. He used the energy of the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool to ensure that his remnant soul would not dissipate. Because he was not refining, it was not difficult for Xiao Xing. Xiao Xing's remnant soul slowly flew towards the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Then, it directly fell into the heavenly spiritual pool. At the same time, the heavenly spiritual pool began to boil and revolve around Xiao Xing. As it revolved, the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool continued to flow into Xiao Xing's remnant soul. It was like nutrients that constantly nourished Xiao Xing's remnant soul, preventing Xiao Xing from successfully resurrecting. It only took Xiao Xing 2 days to merge with the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool. After all, he was not refining, so it was much simpler. After successfully absorbing the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiao Xing's remnant soul became much more solid. At first glance, it seemed no different from a living person. However, if one carefully sensed Xiao Xing, they would not be able to sense the slightest bit of life from him. There was still a faint smile on his face. After successfully absorbing the 80% of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiao Chen's remnant soul could last for at least 100 years. Of course, this was under the premise that he did not use the remnant soul's power recklessly. If he used the remnant soul's power during this period of time, the time would obviously be shortened. Strictly speaking, Xiao Xing's current state was a little strange. Because of the heavenly spiritual pool, Xiao Xing's current state should be between life and death. After all, even a saint's remnant soul could not exist for 100 years in this world. Xiao Xing had succeeded. At the same time, after 2 days of preparation, Xiao Chen had also adjusted his state to its peak. With his hands behind his back, Xiao Xing walked up to Xiao Chen and said with a smile, "Are you ready?" Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen nodded. However, from his appearance, it could be seen that Xiao Chen was a completely different person from before. His situation was clearly much better. Thus, Xiao Chen secretly relaxed. Seeing Xiao Chen nod, Xiao Xing did not waste any more words. With a wave of his hand, the heavenly spiritual pool that had been prepared for Xiao Chen slowly flew towards Xiao Chen. Follow my instructions. Remember, you cannot be greedy when refining the heavenly spiritual pool. You have to do it slowly. Alright, calm your heart and concentrate. Xiao Xing said as he controlled the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. According to Xiao Xing's instructions, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged and closed his eyes. At the same time, the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool slowly entered Xiao Chen's body under Xiao Xing's control. According to Xiao Xing's instructions, Xiao Chen could only refine the heavenly spiritual pool bit by bit with his current cultivation. First, he had to seal the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool within his body. Then, he had to separate a bit of energy to refine it. This process repeated until the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool was completely refined. Of course, during this entire process, Xiao Xing would also lend a hand. Furthermore, Xiao Xing did not tell Xiao Chen that Xiao Xing would have to expend quite a bit of energy to help him refine the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool. Originally, this strand of soul remnant could last for 100 years, but after helping Xiao Chen, it could only last for 80 years. In an instant, it had lost 20 years. However, Xiao Xing did not mind at all because it was worth it. To Xiao Xing, the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool was incomparably important. Therefore, Xiao Xing did not mind expending a bit of energy for it. Xiao Chen closed his eyes and began to refine the energy within the heavenly spiritual pool according to Xiao Xing's instructions. At the same time, Xiao Xing also sat cross-legged behind Xiao Chen. He gently pressed his hands against Xiao Chen's back, using his own energy to seal the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool within Xiao Chen's body. Otherwise, the energy would leak out. At the same time, He helped Xiao Chun refine the 20% of the heavenly spiritual pool, speeding up the process. Begging for your collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 706. With Xiao Xing's assistance, Xiao Qin was able to refine the heaven's spirit pool much more easily. Strands of pure energy constantly circulated through his body. At the same time, Xiao Qian's cultivation shot up like a rocket, rapidly skyrocketing. The circular valley was silent. Xiao Qun and Xiao Xing sat there with their eyes closed. Time flew by, and Xiao Qian's cultivation constantly changed day after day. In just 3 days, Xiao Qun had broken through from the minor achievement of Dao validation to the major achievement of Dao validation. Breaking through a small level in 3 days was a speed that was absolutely shocking. Moreover, after the breakthrough, Xiao Qun had only used less than 1/20th of the 20% of the energy in the heaven spiritual pool. One could imagine how much energy was contained in the 20% of the heaven spiritual pool. It was no wonder that Xiao Xing had repeatedly warned Xiao Qun not to make any mistakes during the process. Otherwise, the tremendous amount of energy was not something Xiao Qun could digest right now. No one came to disturb Xiao Qun, and Xiao Qun began what could be described as the most satisfying seclusion of his life. As Xiao Qun crazily broke through, the Wind Ghost King had completely fallen into chaos. The Wind Ghost King searched for Xiao Qun like a madman. The death of his son had basically driven the Wind Ghost King insane. However, after searching for so long, Xiao Qun seemed to have vanished into thin air. There were no clues at all, which made the Wind Ghost King even crazier. For this reason, he did not hesitate to ally with the other Wind Ghost Kings of the Wind Ghost tribes. He even begged a Wind Ghost Saint ruler to help him search for Xiao Qun. Wind ghosts could be seen all over the Wind Plains, searching for something. However, despite mobilizing such a large force, they still failed to find Xiao Qun. The Wind Ghost's large-scale operation naturally could not escape Saint Kuang Li's notice. After some investigation, Saint Kuang Li found out that the Wind Ghost's crazy actions were all in search of a human cultivator. To his surprise, this human cultivator was Xiao Qun. Inside the City Lord Mansion of Wind Suppression City, Saint Kuang Li sat in the main hall with a smile on his rough face. This little guy is really bold. He actually killed a Saint Blood Wind Ghost in the Wind Plains. Haha. Saint Kuang Li knew from the beginning that Xiao Qun had entered the Wind Plains. Otherwise, the ancient sacred sect would not have rewarded Xiao Qun with 3 black armor talismans. They all thought that Xiao Qun had gone to the Wind Plains to gain experience. However, no one had expected that Xiao Qun would actually kill a saint-blooded wind ghost in the Wind Plains. This kind of courage was indeed amazing. It was no wonder that these wind ghosts had gone crazy. After his laughter faded away, Saint Kuang Li muttered to himself with a profound expression, "Forget it, this old man finds this little fellow quite pleasing to the eye. There's no harm in helping him." After knowing what had happened in the Wind Plains, Saint Kuang Li planned to help Xiao Qun. He liked Xiao Qun, but more importantly, Xiao Qun had already caught the attention of the upper echelons of the ancient sacred sect. Unless it was something extremely important, the ancient sacred sect naturally would not allow Xiao Qun to die in the Wind Plains. On the same day, Saint Kuang Li called for Saint Qing Ju and Saint Tianfeng through a sound transmission talisman. The 3 saints entered the Wind Plains together. The 3 saints' entry into the Wind Plains naturally attracted the attention of the Wind Ghost clan. Before the 3 of them could enter the Wind Plains, the Wind Ghost Saint Kings of the Wind Ghost clan all appeared. There were 7 of them in total. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings blocked the path of Saint Kuang Li and the others. The atmosphere became tense. At the same time, one of the Wind Ghost Saint Kings asked coldly, "Human saints, do you want to die? Can you kill us?" Hearing those words, Saint Qingjue said indifferently, "In terms of strength, humans were clearly stronger than the Wind Ghost clan. If the ancient sacred sect wanted to, they could destroy the Wind Ghost clan at any time. This was no joke. However, the ancient sacred sect had not killed the Wind Ghost clan until now. The reason was very simple: there were no benefits. Naturally, it was not worth doing something that did not benefit them. Firstly, the Wind Ghost clan lived in the Wind Plains. The Wind Plains was a land of death for humans. Although it could be used as a training ground, there were no other benefits apart from that. Destroying the Wind Ghost clan and gaining control of the Wind Plains was meaningless to the ancient sacred sect and all the human cultivators in the ancient sacred state. The Wind Plains was the home of the Wind Ghost clan, but it was of little value to humans. It was clearly not worth it to fight to the death with the Wind Ghost clan for a piece of chicken rib. Even if the ancient sacred sect had enough power to destroy the Wind Ghost clan, they would definitely have to pay a price. The price was not proportional to the benefits, which was why the ancient sacred sect had not attacked the Wind Ghost clan. From the ancient sacred sect's point of view, as long as the Wind Ghost clan did not go overboard and did not affect the stability of the ancient sacred state, there was naturally no need to pay too much attention to them. As for the Wind Ghost attack, the impact was not great. After all, it was only around the Wind Suppression City. The Wind Ghost clan was also very conscious. Even if they broke through the Wind Suppression City, they would not advance into the hinterland of the ancient sacred state. In fact, both humans and Wind Ghost clan were very clear about the sensitive relationship between the two clans. They also knew each other's bottom line. Therefore, as long as they did not cross the bottom line, everything was still under control. The humans did not want to destroy the Wind Ghost clan, and the Wind Ghost clan did not dare to cross the bottom line of the humans. Therefore, even though the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings blocked their path, the 3 of them did not change their expressions at all. This was because the 3 of them knew very well that the Wind Ghost clan would definitely not dare to kill a human saint. Because if they did, they would undoubtedly be digging their own grave. Killing a human saint was definitely crossing the bottom line of the ancient sacred sect. Once such a thing happened, the ancient sacred sect would definitely uproot the entire Wind Ghost clan, even if they had to pay a price. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings did not care about Saint Qingju's faint smile. Of course, they would not attack either. The Wind Ghost Saint King that had spoken earlier said coldly, "Human saints, why have you come to the Wind Plains?" Clearly, the Wind Ghost Saint King did not want to be entangled with the human saints, so he did not mince his words. It was as if he was saying, "If you have something to say it and scram." Facing the Wind Ghost Saint King's attitude, the 3 saints did not get angry. The 3 of them were clearly here for Shaoqin. Stepping forward, Saint Qingju said directly, "I heard that the Wind Ghost clan is looking for a human cultivator. This person is a disciple of our ancient sacred sect. I hope you will not harm him." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 707. Saint Quangli did not mince his words either, stating the purpose of their trip. Joining forces with Saint Qingjue and Saint Tianfeng to enter the Wind Plains, the purpose of the 3 saints was naturally to deal with Shaoqin. Hearing Saint Quangli's words, the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings' faces darkened. Then, one of the Wind Ghost Saint Kings yelled, "You're talking about Shaoqin? Humph, he killed a Saint Blood Wind Ghost. How can we let him leave the Wind Plains alive?" Killing a Saint Blood Wind Ghost was like poking a hornet's nest, but Saint Quangli didn't care at all. "I said, you can't touch Shaoqin." The 7 Wind Ghost Sacred Kings were furious. The Wind Ghost Sacred King that had spoken earlier said coldly, "Let's go," said the Wind Ghost Sacred King. "So what if we touch him? If anything happens to Shaoqin, you Wind Ghost race can wait to die. Oh, I forgot to tell you, Shaoqin is our human perspective holy son. You should know the consequences of killing him." Saint Quangli smiled. The 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings fell silent when they heard Saint Quangli's words. There were 2 kinds of human martial artists that couldn't be killed. One was the saints, and the other was the saints' sons. The Wind Ghost tribe was very clear about this. Killing a human saint's son would definitely infuriate the ancient saint sect. Prospective holy sons were people who had the potential to become holy son in the ancient sacred sect. They had an extraordinary status. Of course, Shao Qin wasn't a prospective holy son yet. He had only attracted the attention of the ancient sacred sect's higher-ups, but he was still far from becoming a prospective holy son. Saint Kuang Li only said this to make the Wind Ghost race hesitate. As expected, the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings fell silent when they heard that Shao Qin was a prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Since Shao Qin was a prospective holy son of the ancient sacred sect, killing him would probably be troublesome. No one knew what Saint Kuang Li and the other human saints had discussed with the 7 Wind Ghost Saint Kings. However, after Saint Kuang Li and the other 2 left the Wind Plains, the Wind Ghost race quickly gave up on pursuing Shao Qin's whereabouts. They had no choice. They weren't strong enough, so they could only swallow their anger. Not to mention the Wind Ghost race's race. Wind Ghost race. Wind Ghost. S.Y. Of. The reason was very simple. It was because of the Wind Ghost race's reproductive ability. Compared to humans, Wind Ghost race's reproductive ability could be said to be terrifying. Humans needed more than 10 years to grow from birth to adulthood, but Wind Ghost race only needed a short year to mature. Such a terrifying growth rate naturally caused the number of wind ghosts to rapidly increase every day. The Wind Plains was only so big. It couldn't accommodate so many wind ghosts. In this way, the Wind Ghost race's attack was a method to deplete the number of wind ghosts. Of course, it would be even better if they could break into Wind Suppression City and obtain the flesh of human cultivators. After all, the flesh of human cultivators was very attractive to Wind Ghost race. The Wind Ghost race's attack was a compromise between humans and Wind Ghost race. After giving up on pursuing Shao Qin, the Wind Plains regained its peace. Shao Qin knew nothing about this. Shao Qin had been in seclusion for an entire month in the valley. During this month, Shao Qin's cultivation kept rising. He had already reached the great circle of the Tao validation realm. With such a huge increase, more than half of the heaven's spiritual pool's 20% energy had been consumed. At this moment, less than a third of the energy had yet to be absorbed and refined by Shao Qin. His cultivation kept rising. It was time for him to break through to the Tao Gate realm. At this moment, Shao Xing's voice sounded in Shao Qin's mind. Kid, break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. I will pass on my understanding of the Tao Gate realm to you. Use the remaining energy of the heaven's spiritual pool to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. His cultivation had already reached the great circle of the Tao validation realm. However, Shao Qin didn't ask Shao Qin to stop. Instead, he asked Shao Qin to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. This opportunity to break through was extremely rare for Shao Qin. Not only did he have the help of the heaven's spiritual pool, but he also had Shao Xing's understanding of the Tao Gate realm. As a result, Shao Qin's chances of breaking through to the Tao Gate realm naturally increased greatly. As Shao Xing's voice fell, a huge amount of information was directly transmitted into Shao Qin's mind by Shao Xing using a secret technique. This information was Shao Xing's understanding of the Tao Gate realm. The Tao querying realm was to search for one's own martial Tao. The Tao validation realm was to prove one's own martial Tao. As for the Tao Gate realm, it was to control the power of martial Tao. In order to break through to the Tao Gate realm, the martial artist had to turn his dantian into a Tao Gate. Once the Tao Gate was formed, he would naturally be able to achieve the Tao Gate realm. For Shao Qin, the understanding that Shao Xing had passed on to him was absolutely priceless. It saved Shao Qin a lot of trouble. Perhaps this was what people often said. It was a blessing to have a powerful master for cultivation. This was indeed the case. Without Shao Xing, Even with the help of the Heaven Spiritual Pool, Xiaochen would never be able to break through to the Tao Gate realm. The reason was very simple. He didn't have enough understanding. It could be said that Xiaochen's existence was the best master for Xiaochen. He was a bright light on the road of cultivation. With the help of Xiaoxing, Xiaochen could avoid any detours, at least before reaching the Sage realm. Another half a month passed as Xiaochen experienced the understanding that Xiaoxing had passed on to him. On this day, Xiaochen's dantian finally changed. The originally invisible dantian began to slowly converge and fuse. Gradually, it formed an illusory Tao Gate. The Tao Gate had just been formed. At this time, it had reached the most critical moment. He had to stabilize this newly formed Tao Gate. As long as he could stabilize it, Xiaochen would be able to break through to the Tao Gate realm in one go. If he failed, all his previous efforts would be wasted. As time passed, Xiaochen's Tao Gate became more and more temporary. At the same time, the remaining Heaven Spiritual Pool was also frantically injecting energy into Xiaochen's newly formed Tao Gate. The Tao Gate was also greedily absorbing the pure energy of the Heaven Spiritual Pool like a whale. Seeing that he was about to succeed, Xiaoxing couldn't help but guess in his heart. I don't know the level of this kid's Tao Gate. However, with the help of the Heaven Spiritual Pool and his own foundation, it shouldn't be bad. However, if he wants to become the Holy Son, I'm afraid it still depends on his luck. Seeking collection, seeking monthly votes, seeking recommendations. Chapter 708. Xiaoxing was curious about the level of Xiaochen's gate. It was well known that once a warrior stepped into the Yellow Realm, the first step would be to condense the dantian. Then, it would stabilize and increase the power of the dantian. When one reached the Tao Gate realm, the dantian would turn into a gate. The gate was different from the dantian. The gate was divided into levels. It was affected by talent, strength, and various aspects of the dantian. The gate condensed by a warrior in the Tao Gate realm was divided into 8 levels according to its strength. The higher the level of the gate condensed, the stronger the warrior would be after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm. At the same time, the benefits of breaking through to the Saint realm in the future would be greater. From low to high, the gate was divided into 8 levels. The division of the gate was very simple and direct. It was based on the number of edges. Everyone's gate had the same shape. This was affected by the rules of heaven and could not be changed. However, there would be edges at the top of each gate. Each corner represented a level of Tao Gate. In other words, after forming a Tao Gate, if there was only one corner at the top of the Tao Gate, then it was a Tao Gate. It was also the most ordinary and lowest level Tao Gate. Of course, the number of warriors who condensed the first gate was the highest. These warriors would have no hope of breaking through to the Tao Transformation realm in their lifetime, because the first gate did not have the qualifications to break through to the Tao Transformation realm. If there were 2 edges above the first gate, it would be the second gate. The second gate had the qualifications to break through to the Tao Transformation realm, but that was it. As for breaking through to the Saint stage, one would have to at least reach the Penta-Tao Gate. Of course, there was only a slight chance of reaching the Penta-Tao Gate. If one did not have a great opportunity, one would never be able to break through to the Saint stage and become a saint. As for the 6-edged Tao Gates, the 7-edged Tao Gates, and the final 8-edged Tao Gates, they were naturally stronger than the previous ones. It could be said that the final 8-edged Tao Gates allowed one to break through to the Saint realm. However, it wasn't easy to condense an 8-edged Tao Gate. Among hundreds of millions of Tao Gate realm martial artists, there might not even be one who possessed an 8-edged Tao Gate. There might not even be a 7-edged Tao Gate. If one wanted to become a saint in the future, a 7-gate was the minimum requirement. In other words, if the gate that Xiaochen condensed this time did not reach the 7th gate, he would not be a saint. The ancient saint sect would never cultivate a person who did not even reach the 7th gate to become a saint. This was simply impossible. It would only be a waste of resources. Because he knew all this, Xiao Xing was a little nervous while waiting for Xiao Chen's gate to take shape. Xiao Xing watched Xiao Chen's gate nervously. After some time, Xiao Chen's dantian, Zhao's dantian had disappeared. Dantian had disappeared. The gate finally took shape. At the same time, 2 edges appeared at the top of the gate. Then, the second edge slowly took shape. 1, 2, 3. Xiao Chen's gate continued to take shape. Throughout this process, Xiao Xing watched with rapt attention. At the same time, he was sweating profusely for Xiao Chen. In the end, when Xiao Chen's gate had the 7th edge, Xiao Xing heaved a sigh of relief. He had finally reached the 7th gate. As long as he had the 7th gate, Xiao Chen would have the qualifications to become the saint child of the ancient saint sect. However, before Xiao Xing could rejoice, the 8th edge slowly condensed and took shape on Xiao Chen's gate. 8-edged Dao Gate. This kid. Xiao Xing was stunned when he sensed the appearance of the 8th edge. Originally, he was nervous about whether Xiao Chen could condense the 7th gate or not. But now, Xiao Chen's gate wasn't just the 7th gate. It was the highest level of 8-edge gate. An 8-edge gate was the highest level of gate. Back then, Xiao Xing had an 8-edge gate, which was why he became the #1 saint of the Sky River continent. Among the current holy sons of the Tianhe continent, Xiao Chen could guarantee that the holy sons who had reached the level of 8-edge Dao sects were not more than average. Most of the holy sons should be at the level of 7-edge Dao sect. It was no exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen would definitely become the saint child of the ancient saint sect. He would definitely break through the saint realm and become a saint. Xiao Xing was overjoyed that Xiao Chen had condensed the 8-edge gate. After a long while, Xiao Xing laughed and scolded, "This brat is really worrisome. Haha." He was sincerely happy for Xiao Chen. When the 8-edge gate took shape, Xiao Chen felt as if some kind of shackle had been broken. In an instant, his aura began to soar. The remaining energy of the heavenly spirit pool began to overflow like a broken dam. Xiao Chen's body began to absorb the pure and enormous energy in an uncontrollable manner. Like rain after a long drought, the energy of the heavenly spiritual pond was constantly being absorbed by Xiao Chen. At the same time, Xiao Chen's aura also quickly broke through the Dao confirmation realm and reached the Dao Gate realm. After successfully breaking through, Xiao Chen's entire body seemed to have been sublimated. Breaking through a major realm had great benefits for a cultivator, especially when breaking through from the Dao confirmation realm to the Dao Gate realm. This was because when one reached the Dao Gate realm, the Dantian would turn into a Dao Gate. The benefits of this were already difficult to describe with words. It took Xiao Chen 3 days to absorb all the energy of the heavenly spiritual pond in his body. His cultivation also successfully stabilized at the Dao Gate realm. If it was before, Xiao Chen would never have believed that he had broken through from the minor completion Dao validation realm all the way to the entry Dao Gate realm in less than 2 months. This kind of breakthrough speed could simply be described as shocking. After sitting cross-legged with his eyes closed for more than a month, Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes. He felt that his body was full of energy. If he was facing the him from more than a month ago, it would not be an exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen felt that a single punch would be enough to determine the winner. Xiao Chen was in a great mood. He finally felt that he was getting closer and closer to becoming a saint. A smile involuntarily appeared on his face. At the same time, Xiao Xing also opened his eyes and said with a smile, "Kid, not bad. You're better than I expected." Xiao Chen's breakthrough was completely witnessed by Xiao Xing. After hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen smiled from the bottom of his heart. Then, Xiao Chen looked at the golden Dao Gate in his dantian and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. So this is my Dao Gate? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 709. This was the first time he had seen his own Dao Gate. From the golden Dao Gate, a pure energy constantly spread out in Xiao Chen's body. At the same time, Xiao Chen's spiritual energy would flow through the Tao Gate after circulating through his meridians. He could clearly feel that his spiritual power had become purer after passing through the Haotian Gate. The Haotian Gate had the effect of condensing spiritual power. Normally, spiritual power would constantly flow through the Haotian Gate. Over time, Xiao Chen's spiritual power would become more and more condensed. It had to be said that this Tao Gate was indeed more than one level stronger than the Dantian. The Tao Gate was also a symbol of stepping into the realm of the strong. After carefully observing his Tao Gate, Xiao Chen withdrew from his body. Then, he looked at Xiao Xing, who had already stood up, and said with a smile, "Old ancestor, I feel that I'm much stronger than I was a month ago. If I meet the sacred blood-wind ghost again, I'm afraid that I'll be able to kill it with a single punch." Xiao Chen's words were not false at all. Moreover, in front of Xiao Xing, Xiao Chen did not need to hide anything. The excitement in his heart was fully revealed. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Chen also had a smile on his face as he scolded with a smile. "You little brat, the strength of the Tao Gate is naturally incomparable to that of the heavenly realm. Before the Tao Gate realm, a martial artist's body only has the Dantian. Once they break through to the Tao Gate realm, the Dantian will turn into a Tao Gate. Naturally, their strength will undergo a qualitative transformation. Moreover, the Tao Gate that you condensed is not an ordinary Tao Gate, but an 8-edged Tao Gate. The Tao Gate was already much stronger than the Dantian. Moreover, the Tao Gate that Xiao Chen condensed was the highest level, the 8-edged Tao Gate. The difference between the two was even greater. Hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen did not know about the levels of the Tao Gate. He asked with a puzzled expression, "8-edged Tao Gate?" Xiao Chen did not know much about the Tao Gate. Then, Xiao Xing patiently explained it to him. Xiao Chen heard that the Tao sects were divided into 8 levels, and his Tao sect was actually the highest level, the octagonal Tao sect. For a moment, Xiao Chen was naturally even more excited. Because Xiao Xing had said that it was only a matter of time before he became the holy son of the ancient sacred sect with his octagonal Tao Gate. Similarly, it was also only a matter of time before he became a saint. How could Xiao Chen not feel excited when he thought about how his position as the holy son was already set in stone? He stood up and clenched his fists. Looking at the dark sky of the wind plains, Xiao Chen swore, "Holy Yin sect and Yunluan, just you wait. I, Xiao Chen, will definitely pay a visit to your sect one day." Xiao Chen was so eager to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Part of it was because he wanted to become stronger, but more importantly, it was because of Gu Lingyao. Xiao Xing had also said that the simplest and most realistic way to save Gu Lingyao was to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Only by becoming the holy son of the ancient sacred sect would Xiao Chen have the right to speak in front of the holy Yin sect. Only then would the holy Yin sect value Xiao Chen. Otherwise, Xiao Chen would not even have the right to speak to the holy Yin sect. Holy son, holy son. This was the prerequisite to saving Gu Lingyao. If one was not a holy son, they would not have the right to speak to the holy Yin sect. Ever since Gu Lingyao had been forcefully brought back to the holy Yin sect by Yunluan, Xiao Chen had always been holding back his pride to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Now, after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm and condensing the 8-gate inverted edge, Xiao Chen had finally taken a big step towards the holy sun position. The holy sun position that was once unattainable and high up in the sky did not seem so far away anymore. After a moment of excitement, Xiao Chen suppressed the excitement and hatred in his heart. The road was still very long. At least before he became the holy sun, Xiao Chen could not relax in the slightest. Seeing Xiao Chen's eyes turn from excitement to determination, Xiao Xing smiled and nodded. "Kid, you've already condensed the 8-gate Tao Gate. There's no point in going to Tianfeng Shengzong anymore. Right now, your best choice is to find a chance to enter the ancient sacred sect. It's best if you can let the upper echelons of the ancient sacred sect know about your talent and potential. If you can become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, that would be the best result for you right now. Xiao Chun had broken through to the Dao Gate realm, so there was no point in returning to Tianfeng Xingzong. Xiao Xing wanted Xiao Chun to become the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. Because once he became the holy son of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chen would receive treatment second only to the holy son. With the support of the ancient sacred sect, Xiao Chen would be able to maintain rapid progress and catch up to the holy sons in the shortest time possible to become the new holy son of the ancient sacred sect. If he wanted to get Gu Lingyao, he had to seize every second. Xiao Xing's suggestion was to choose the shortest path for Xiao Chen. Of course, although this would save a lot of time, the hardships and difficulties involved were far beyond everyone's imagination. Step by step, from Tianfeng Xingzong to the ancient sacred sect, and then to becoming the holy son. In this way, everything would be logical, and the pressure on Xiao Chen would naturally be much less. However, this would take too long. Xiao Chen did not have so much time to waste, so he could only take the risk. Even if the pressure on him was much greater, so what? Sure enough, after hearing Xiao Xing's words, Xiao Chen had no intention of backing down. His eyes were filled with determination as he said faintly, "The holy son of the ancient sacred sect?" After breaking through to the Dao Gate realm, Xiao Chen's confidence increased greatly. He also began to think about the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. No, to be precise, Xiao Chen was no longer thinking about the holy son of the ancient sacred sect. He was determined to get it. Although he did not know how many holy sons there were in the ancient sacred sect, no matter how many there were, he had to have a place in it. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Chen looked at Xiao Xing and said, "Old ancestor, let's go. We have already obtained the heaven spiritual pool. It's time for us to leave the wind plane and head to the ancient sacred sect." Xiao Chen planned to head to the ancient sacred sect through the heavenly wind saint and then find a way to become a holy son. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Xiao Xing smiled and nodded. Immediately after, Xiao Xing returned to Xiao Chen's body. Xiao Chen climbed up the towering cliff with his bare hands and returned to the wind plane. The wind plane was still incomparably desolate. Not even a blade of grass grew. After using the black armor talisman, Xiao Chen began to rush towards the wind-suppressing city. Along the way, the wind plane seemed to have returned to peace. It was very difficult to see any traces of the wind ghost. Of course, Xiao Chen did not know that the reason why the wind plane was so peaceful was because of the Kuangli Saint, the Qingju Saint, and the Heavenly Wind Saint. If it were not for the three of them, there would probably be countless wind ghosts searching for Xiao Chen's whereabouts in the wind plane. A few days later, Xiao Chen left the core of the wind plane and entered the outer region of the wind plane. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. Chapter 710. The journey back from the depths of the wind plains was so smooth that it was puzzling. Xiao Chen did not encounter a single wind ghost attack. There were even a few times when he could see wind ghosts in the distance, but the wind ghosts would quickly turn around and leave. Xiao Chen was speechless. He even suspected that the wind ghosts were avoiding him. However, how was that possible? Given the relationship between humans and wind ghosts, how could they possibly avoid him? Moreover, these ordinary wind ghosts had low intelligence. They did not even know what fear was, so how could they avoid him? Xiao Chen naturally did not know that the wind ghosts were acting like this because of the wind ghost saint ruler's orders. After the discussion with the saint of Kuangli and the others, the wind ghost saint ruler had ordered that no wind ghost was to provoke Xiao Chen. At the same time, one of the wind ghost saint rulers had personally stepped forward to appease the wind ghost king. With the wind ghost saint ruler's orders, Xiao Chen was naturally safe in the wind plains. Let alone danger, even if human cultivators wanted to harm Xiao Chen, the wind ghost saint rulers would not agree. This was because the saint of Kuangli had said that Shao Qin was the chosen saint of the ancient sacred sect. In any case, nothing could happen to Shao Qin in the Wind Plains. The Wind Ghost Saint rulers knew this very well. It had to be said that the ancient sacred clan had done Shao Qin a great favor without him knowing anything. Nothing happened along the way. Shao Qin soon left the Wind Plains. This trip to the Wind Plains had been rather smooth, and the result could be said to be a happy one. Shao Xing had obtained the Heaven's spiritual pool, and Shao Qin himself had advanced by leaps and bounds because of it. His strength was many times stronger than when he had entered the Wind Plains over a month ago. In just over a month, he had broken through from the initial Dao validation realm to the initial Dao gate realm. This speed was something that even Shao Qin had not expected. After leaving the Wind Plains, the sky once again became bright and sunny. Compared to the gloomy and desolate Wind Plains, the outside world was simply too blissful. Shao Qin took a deep breath. He had gotten used to the environment of the Wind Plains over a month ago. Facing the azure sky and the extremely comfortable breeze, Shao Qin felt much better. It's time to return to Tianfeng Xingzong, then head to the ancient sacred sect. Shao Qin took a deep breath and thought to himself. Along the way, Shao Qin and Shao Xing had already discussed their plans. With a plan, Shao Qin directly headed towards Wind Suppression City. Not long after, Shao Qin entered Wind Suppression City. After the previous battle, the guards of Wind Suppression City clearly knew about Shao Qin. Therefore, when they saw Shao Qin walking over, they did not check him and directly chose to relax. Moreover, their attitudes were extremely respectful. After returning to Wind Suppression City after more than a month, Shao Qin planned to rest for a night before returning to Tianfeng Xingzong. After all, Shao Qin's life had been very difficult for more than a month. Now that he had returned to Wind Suppression City, he naturally wanted to properly relax. However, Shao Qin did not know that as soon as he entered the city, the Tang clan, one of the three great clans of Wind Suppression City, received the news. At this moment, in a magnificent mansion located in the southeast of Wind Suppression City. The scale of this mansion was second only to the Wind Suppression City's City Lord's mansion. This was also the mansion of the Tang clan, one of the three great clans of Wind Suppression City. In the main hall of the mansion, a middle-aged man sat boldly in the main seat. He looked at the person below with a gloomy expression. "Are you sure that little bastard is back?" Reporting to the clan head, "I'm sure that Shao Qin is back. He just entered the city." Over a month later, the Tang clan learned that Shao Qin had killed Tang Tianbao. Back then, Tang Tianbao had gone to the Wind Plains to train, but there was no news from him even after half a month had passed. As such, Tang Meng, Tang Tianbao's father and also the father of the Tang clan, found it strange and sent people to the Wind Plains to look for him. However, what Tang Meng did not expect was that he did not find Tang Tianbao's whereabouts. Instead, he learned that Tang Tianbao had been killed by Shao Qin from other human cultivators who had entered the Wind Plains to train. As the saying went, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. Furthermore, Shao Qin did not deliberately hide the fact that he had killed Tang Tianbao, so the news naturally spread. When Shao Qin had killed Tang Tianbao, there had been another group of human cultivators nearby who had witnessed everything. Tang Meng did not know why Shao Qin had killed Tang Tianbao. In Tang Meng's heart, since Shao Qin had dared to kill his son, he wanted Shao Qin dead. After confirming that Shao Qin had returned to Wind Suppression City, Tang Meng's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, "All right, I'll use this kid's head today to comfort my son Tianbao's soul in heaven." After saying that, Tang Meng immediately ordered the Tang family guards to capture Shao Qin. In response, the Tang family guard beside Tang Meng said worriedly, "Family, Shao Qin is a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. If our Tang family kills him, will—" He did not finish his sentence, but the meaning of the Tang family guard was clear. Xiao Chen was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. If they killed him, would they offend Tianfeng Xingzong? Tang Meng did not care about the guard's worry and said coldly, "Humph, if it were any other day, I would be afraid of Xiao Chen. But now, Cheng has been promoted to a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect, and is at home. With Cheng here, why would I be afraid of that little bastard Xiao Chen?" The Cheng that Tang Meng mentioned was called Tang Tianqing. He was Tang Tianbao's elder brother and also Tang Meng's biological son. Tang Meng had 2 sons. Compared to Tang Tianbao, who was ignorant and incompetent, Tang Tianqing was the pride of Tang Meng and the entire Tang family. Not only did Tang Tianqing display an extremely high talent in cultivation from a young age, but he was also sent to the ancient sacred sect by Tang Meng. Later on, Tang Tianbao successfully entered the ancient sacred sect with his own efforts and was promoted to a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. During this period of time, Tang Tianqing had returned home from the ancient sacred sect for a visit. Even though Xiao Chen was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. Even a fool could tell who was more valuable. With his precious son, Tang Tianqing, even if he killed Xiao Chen, what could Tianfeng Xingzong do? Hearing Tang Meng's words, a look of admiration appeared on the guard's face. When Tang Tianqing was mentioned, any member of the Tang family would be proud. With Tang Tianqing, the Tang family did not fear Xiao Chen at all. He bowed respectfully to Tang Meng and said confidently, "Don't worry, family head. I'll bring people to capture Xiao Chen. Please add me to your collection. Please recommend me." End of chapter. Chapter 711. Because of Tang Tianqing, the Tang family no longer had any scruples about Xiao Chen. They were both direct disciples, but one was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect, while the other was a direct disciple of the Tianfeng Xingzong. There was a huge gap between the two. Most intuitively, Xiao Chen could only be regarded as a direct disciple of a branch sect, while Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the main sect. A direct disciple of the main sect naturally wouldn't care about a direct disciple of a branch sect. As soon as he finished speaking, the guard of the Tang family immediately rushed toward where Xiao Chen was with a menacing aura. After learning that Xiao Chen had killed Tang Tianbao, the Tang family had already investigated Xiao Chen. They knew that Xiao Chen's cultivation was only at the Dao confirmation realm. Therefore, Tang Meng didn't intend to capture Xiao Chen personally. He didn't even send out the experts of the Tang family. He only sent 4 Dao Gate realm guards. Presumably, 4 Dao Gate realm guards were enough to deal with Xiao Chen. Even if he was a direct disciple, no matter how heaven-defying he was, it was already very difficult to defeat an enemy who was 1 realm higher than him. And Xiao Chen had no chance of winning against 4 Dao Gate realm martial artists. Of course, the Tang clan would never have imagined that Xiao Chen had only been in the Wind Plains for a little over a month. In less than 2 months, Xiao Chen's cultivation had already broken through from the initial Dao validation realm to the initial Dao Gate realm, and he had even condensed the 8-edged Dao Gate. Unaware of the change in Xiao Chen's strength, the 4 Dao Gate realm martial artists of the Tang family went out aggressively and rushed towards Xiao Chen's location. Xiao Chen, who had just entered the wind-suppressing city and hadn't found a place to stay, naturally didn't know that the Tang family's people were rushing towards him. The entire wind-suppressing city was still bustling with people. The disciples of the various saint sects and martial artists from all over the place gathered here. Along the way, Xiao Chen was looking for a place to stay tonight. After working hard for more than a month, Xiao Chen naturally wanted to relax. He first took a comfortable bath and then had a good meal. Of course, good wine was also indispensable. Just as Xiao Chen was strolling on the street in a good mood, Xiao Xing smiled mysteriously and said, "Kid, it seems that it's impossible for you to relax. Someone is here." After merging with the Heaven's Spirit Pool, Xiao Xing's perceptive ability obviously had recovered a lot. Xiao Chen was far from it. Xiao Chen was puzzled when he heard Zhao's words. Who was here? He guessed that he hadn't offended anyone when he entered the city, right? He was puzzled, but soon, 4 Dao Gate realm martial artists of the Tang family appeared in front of him aggressively. Feeling the momentum of the 4 Tang family martial artists in front of him, Xiao Chen frowned slightly and said with a slightly cold tone, "Is there anything I can help you with?" As soon as the 4 of them appeared, they blocked all of Xiao Chen's escape routes without any explanation. 2 of them stood in front of Xiao Chen, while the other 2 stood behind him. Xiao Chen was naturally not going to be nice to these 4 people who had come with ill intentions. However, he still did not know the identities of these 4 people, which was why he asked. In the face of Xiao Chen's question, the 4 Tang clan martial artists sneered. The leader, a middle-aged man who was at the great fulfillment of Dao Gate realm, stepped forward and sneered at Xiao Chen. Yes? Xiao Chen, you really don't know what's good for you. You killed our young master, and you still dare to enter the wind-suppressing city openly. Do you really think our Tang family doesn't care about you? Tang family? After hearing the middle-aged man's words, Xiao Chen quickly guessed the identities of these 4 people. Xiao Chen had almost forgotten that he had killed the Tang family's young master, Tang Tianbao, in the Wind Plains. However, it was obvious that the Tang family had received the news and came to seek revenge. In the blink of an eye, he had guessed the whole story. Seeing this, the middle-aged man sneered, "Why? Have you remembered? However, it's too late for regrets now." The 4 from the Tang clan were aggressive, but Xiao Chen did not care about them at all. He had long sensed that the 4 of them were all in the Dao Gate realm, and the most powerful one was in the great fulfillment of the Dao Gate realm. However, although their cultivation was higher than Xiao Chen's, Xiao Chen wasn't afraid. This was because the Dao Gate that Xiao Chen had condensed was an 8-edged Dao Gate. According to Xiao Chen's guess, the Dao Gate that the 4 people in front of him had condensed was no more than 2-edged Dao Gate. The gap between the Dao Gates was too big. Therefore, even if the cultivation of these 4 people was higher than his, they still wouldn't be his match. At this time, Xiao Chen was actually most interested in why the Tang family would seek revenge from him. How could a mere Tang family dare to go against Tianfeng Xingzong? Many people knew that he was a direct disciple of the Heavenly Wind Saint sect, and the Tang family obviously knew about it as well. Knowing his identity, the Tang family still dared to take revenge. What did they rely on? He was curious about where the Tang family's confidence came from. Of course, Xiao Chen still didn't regret killing Tang Tianbao, because he had asked for it. The corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled up slightly, and a cold smile bloomed on his face. Looking at the middle-aged man who was leading the group, Xiao Chen said plainly, "Regret? Haha, I think you might have misunderstood. If you're referring to killing Tang Tianbao, I still don't regret it because he deserved to die." Would he regret killing Tang Tianbao? This was simply nonsense. There was no fear in his eyes. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, the middle-aged man was immediately furious, and a terrifying killing intent constantly spread out. At the same time, the other 3 people beside him also shouted one after another, "Captain, why waste your breath on him? Just take him back and let the patriarch deal with him." That's right. Death is at hand and he still doesn't know what's good for him. When the time comes, we must let the patriarch put him to death. The 4 people of the Tang family were not afraid at all, because they knew Xiao Chen too well. Even if he was a genius, he was still too young and could only be trampled under the feet of the 4 of them. It had to be said that the 4 guards of the Tang family were really too careless. Not to mention that Xiao Chen did not show the slightest bit of panic when facing the 4 of them. From the beginning to the end, the 4 of them did not deliberately sense Xiao Chen's cultivation. From the beginning, the 4 of them had the preconceived notion that Xiao Chen's cultivation was at the initial Dao validation realm, so they did not even bother to sense his cultivation. Of course, if they were willing to personally sense Xiao Chen's cultivation, they would find that the four of them could not see Xiao Chen's cultivation at all. With the existence of the octagonal door, unless one's cultivation was far superior, no one could see Xiao Chen's cultivation. This was also the reason why Xiao Chen could not see through the cultivation of Chen Yu and the other chosen. Hearing that the four of them wanted to take him back to the Tang family and put him to death, Xiao Chen laughed and said coldly, "I'm afraid the four of you are not enough to capture me. Please collect, please vote, please recommend me." End of chapter. Chapter 712. Xiao Chen didn't care about the four Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators at all. Facing Xiao Chen's calm and indifferent attitude, the faces of the four Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators immediately sank, and the leading Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivator shouted coldly, "Kid, you're courting death. Go, break his limbs and bring him back." Tang Meng's order was to capture Xiao Chen alive, so the four Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators didn't think of killing Xiao Chen on the spot. Hearing their leader's order, the three Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators sneered as they approached Xiao Chen. Their eyes flickered with undisguised coldness. Xiao Chen's expression remained calm. Under his calm gaze, the three Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators launched their attack. The three of them attacked at the same time, attacking Xiao Chen from three different directions. A month ago, Xiao Chen was only in the Dao confirmation realm. Even if he was Tianfeng Xingzong's direct disciple, and his battle prowess far surpassed those of the same realm, a Dao confirmation realm cultivator was still a Dao confirmation realm cultivator. How could Xiao Chen be a match for three Dao Gate realm cultivators? Because of this thought, the three Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators didn't put Xiao Chen in their eyes at all. Perhaps in their opinion, even if a young genius like Xiao Chen had heaven-defying talent, he still hadn't truly matured. "Kid, you dared to kill my Tang family's young master. No one can protect you today." The three of them shouted coldly as their attacks arrived. Just when everyone thought that Xiao Chen would be crippled by the three of them, Xiao Chen suddenly moved. He took a step forward and instantly executed the ferocious tiger stampede, appearing in front of one of the Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivators in the blink of an eye. He lightly tapped his finger and executed the Tai Yi sword finger. His speed was unbelievably fast. Before the Tang family Dao Gate realm cultivator could react, Xiao Chen's Tai Yi sword finger had already struck him. At such a close distance, there was no way for the Tang clan cultivator to evade. Enveloped by the thick pillar of spiritual energy from the Tai Yi sword finger, the Tang clan cultivator's body was instantly devoured. Xiao Chen's counterattack was too fast. It was so fast that no one could react in time. Roughly a dozen breaths later, the Tai Yi sword finger slowly dissipated, and the Tang clan cultivator appeared before everyone once more. However, at this moment, there was not a single trace of life in him. A single finger had killed a person. Faced with such an outcome, not to mention the Tang family members, even the many cultivators watching from afar could not help but gasp. Everyone was familiar with Xiao Chen, especially after the Wind Ghost's attack. It was also because of their familiarity with Xiao Chen that everyone thought that Xiao Chen was doomed this time. After all, he was facing four Dao Querying Realm cultivators. In the face of such strong opponents, no matter how talented Xiao Chen was, he had no chance of winning. However, no one expected that under the siege of four Tang clan cultivators, not only was Xiao Chen unscathed, he even killed a Tang clan cultivator with a single finger. Everyone was shocked by the scene before them. At this moment, the Tang clan cultivator leading the group finally realized Xiao Chen's cultivation. A look of disbelief flashed across his eyes. When Xiao Chen attacked just now, the spiritual energy gushed out, which made the Tang clan cultivator leading the group feel that Xiao Chen had already broken through to the Dao Querying Realm. Staring at Xiao Chen in disbelief, the Tang clan cultivator leading the group could not help but exclaim, You have broken through to the Dao Querying Realm? It was no wonder that the Tang clan cultivator was so flustered. It was entirely because Xiao Chen's improvement was too terrifying. Xiao Chen was only in the Dao querying realm a month ago. However, after a month, Xiao Chen had already broken through to the Dao querying realm. No one would be able to accept this. No one would believe such a speed of improvement if they did not witness it with their own eyes. After Xiao Chen's cultivation was exposed and he took the lead to kill a Tang clan cultivator at lightning speed, Xiao Chen's eyes flashed with a cold light as he faced the remaining 3 Tang clan cultivators who were stunned on the spot. I already said that you guys can't do anything to me. Fram. After breaking through to the Dao querying realm and condensing the 8-edged Dao querying realm, Xiao Chen's powerful strength gave him incomparable confidence. In the Dao querying realm, Xiao Chen feared no one. It was precisely because of this incomparable confidence that Xiao Chen did not put the Tang clan in his eyes. Of course, Xiao Chen also had his reasons for not being afraid of the Tang clan. Just his identity as a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong was not something that the Tang clan could offend. Of course, Xiao Chen still did not know of Tang Tiancheng's existence, nor did he know that Tang Tiancheng was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. It was precisely because of Tang Tiancheng that the Tang clan dared to take revenge for Tang Tianbao. Otherwise, the Tang clan would not have dared to attack Xiao Chen. As the cold shout fell, the 3 Tang clan cultivators looked at each other in dismay. No one had expected things to develop like this. Or rather, Xiao Chen's strength had already reached such a terrifying level. Judging from the fact that Xiao Chen had killed a Tang clan martial artist with a single strike, the 4 of them were indeed no match for Xiao Chen. For a moment, the leading Tang clan martial artist was also curious. Xiao Chen was only at the entry level of Dao Gate, yet he already had such strength. How strong was the Dao Gate that Xiao Chen had condensed? The Dao querying realm cultivators and above was directly related to their combat strength. As a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, the Dao querying realm that Xiao Chen condensed when he broke through to the Dao querying realm would obviously not be too weak. At the very least, it would be at the level of a 4-edged Dao querying realm, or even stronger. A hint of retreating gradually rose in his heart. After a moment of silence, the leading Tang clan cultivator said in a deep voice, "Let's go." They came aggressively, but left with their tails between their legs. Seeing the 4 Tang clan cultivators leave, Xiao Chen did not stop them. He found an inn in Suppressing Wind City to stay. Although Xiao Chen was curious about the Tang clan, he did not take it to heart. At this moment, the best way for Xiao Chen to enter the ancient sacred sect was naturally through Tianfeng Xingzong. Just as Xiao Chen was thinking about his future plans in the Tang clan, although it was already late at night, the Tang clan was in a complete mess. Originally, they had sent 4 Dao querying realm guards to capture Xiao Chen. They thought that there would be no accidents, but no one arrived first. Not only did the 4 fail to capture Xiao Chen, but one of them was also killed by Xiao Chen. In the main hall of the Tang clan, Tang Meng sat on the main seat and looked at the 3 people below with anger. He shouted in a deep voice, "Xiao Chen broke through to the Dao querying realm? How is this possible? How could he break through to the Dao querying realm in just over a month?" Tang Meng was also extremely shocked by the news of Xiao Chen's breakthrough. As soon as he shouted, a young man wearing the ancient sacred sect's direct disciple uniform walked in with a faint smile on his face. He walked all the way to Tang Meng and said faintly, "Father, let your son do it personally tomorrow. I have a cold and fever, and I feel dizzy as if I have been stepped on by an elephant. I went for an injection this afternoon, and I insisted on writing another chapter. I really don't have the energy, so I will write 2 chapters today. I will write 2 more chapters when I get better. Sigh, it is really bad to not have a stockpile of chapters. Brothers, please forgive me. I really can't hold on any longer. In addition, the weather is cold." End of this chapter. Chapter 713. What had happened today had indeed shocked the Tang family. 4 Dao Gate realm guards had gone to capture Xiao Chen, but one of them had been killed by Xiao Chen in the end. The other 3 could be said to have fled in panic. In less than 2 months, Xiao Chen's cultivation had broken through from the Dao validation realm to the Dao querying realm. Such an improvement had indeed exceeded everyone's expectations. Hearing Tang Tianqing's words, Tang Meng also looked at him. As the son he was most proud of, Tang Meng had high hopes for Tang Tianqing. Tang Tianqing had indeed not disappointed him. At least, Tang Tianqing had lived up to his reputation as the true dragon of the Tang family. Facing Tang Meng's gaze, Tang Tianqing appeared to be extremely shocked, even a little indifferent, compared to the ugly expressions of the others present. It was as if Tang Tianqing did not care about Xiao Chen's breakthrough at all. His eyes were filled with confidence. Compared to Tang Tianqing's confidence, Tang Meng was filled with worry. He said with a grave expression, "Tianqing, Xiao Chen, that little bastard, has already broken through to the Dao Gate realm. Will it be dangerous for you to take action personally? Why don't I send someone to kill him directly? Isn't he in the Dao Gate realm? I don't believe that he can defeat an elder of the Tang family if I send a few elders to take action." He was a little worried that Tang Tianqing would not be a match for Xiao Chen. After all, Tang Tianqing's cultivation was only at the initial Dao Gate realm. Although Tang Tianqing's combat strength was very strong and he had condensed the pentagons, Xiao Chen was clearly not an ordinary person. Therefore, Tang Meng did not want Tang Tianqing to take the risk personally. However, facing Tang Meng's worries, Tang Tianqing did not mind at all and smiled faintly. "Father, you don't have to worry. Killing Xiao Chen is just a piece of cake for me. Moreover, if you send someone else to kill Xiao Chen, it will be difficult to explain to Tianfeng Xingzong. It's better for me to do it personally." Tang Tianqing had absolute confidence in killing Xiao Chen. Moreover, Xiao Chen was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. If he died while others were injured, Tianfeng Xingzong would pursue the matter. If Tang Tianqing took action, Tianfeng Xingzong would have nothing to say. Would Tianfeng Xingzong dare to go to the Ancient Saints sect to take action? The most suitable person to kill Xiao Chen was undoubtedly Tang Tianqing. Hearing his son's words, Tang Meng fell into silence. Tang Tianqing's words were not without reason. However, after experiencing today's events, Tang Meng was a little worried. What if Tang Tianqing was not Xiao Chen's match? After pondering for a while, Tang Meng finally looked at Tang Tianqing and asked solemnly, "Tianqing, are you really confident in killing Xiao Chen?" Tang Meng naturally did not want Tang Tianqing to take any more risks since one of his sons had already died. Facing Tang Meng's question, Tang Tianqing smiled and replied without thinking, "Father, don't worry. I will definitely kill Xiao Chen and avenge my younger brother." Tang Tianqing's words were full of confidence. Although Xiao Chen had broken through to the Dao Gate realm in just over a month, Tang Tianqing felt that Xiao Chen must have obtained some kind of opportunity in the Wind Plains. But even so, what could Xiao Chen do after breaking through to the Dao Gate realm? One had to know that Tang Tianqing was not an ordinary Dao Gate realm warrior. As a direct disciple of the Ancient Saints sect, Tang Tianqing's strength was obviously not something an ordinary warrior could compare with. Both of them were in the Dao Gate realm, and Tang Tianqing was in the initial stage of the Dao Gate realm. His cultivation was one stage higher than Xiao Chen's. Moreover, Xiao Chen was only a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, while Tang Tianqing was a direct disciple of the Ancient Saints sect. There was no reason for Tang Tianqing to lose to Xiao Chen. Tang Meng was full of confidence. Seeing this, Tang Meng finally nodded and said, "All right, but Tianqing, you must not be careless when dealing with Xiao Chen." Tang Meng reminded Tang Tianqing after promising him. Hearing this, Tang Tianqing nodded indifferently. Then, he walked out of the hall and sneered in his heart. "Xiao Chen, I'll personally take your life tomorrow. I'll let you know that my Tang family is not to be trifled with. Tang Tiancheng wanted to deal with Xiao Chen personally. At the same time, the battle between Xiao Chen and the Tang family's guards was quickly spread throughout the wind-suppressing city. Some people even found out that the reason why the Tang family wanted to deal with Xiao Chen was because Xiao Chen had killed Tang Tianbao in the Wind Plains. For a moment, all the major families in the wind-suppressing city were secretly paying attention to the development of the situation. After all, the Tang family was one of the three major families in the wind-suppressing city. Every action of the Tang family had a great impact on the wind-suppressing city. The other two family heads and the city lord's mansion knew about the feud between the Tang family and Xiao Chen. At this moment, in the city lord's mansion, Saint Kuang Li was sitting in the study room. He smiled faintly as he looked at the deacon of the ancient saint sect in front of him. Xiao Chen has broken through to the Dao Gate realm? It seems like he has gained a lot from this trip to the Wind Plains. Yeah, but this matter between Xiao Chen and the Tang family is still a little troublesome. The Tang family will not let this matter rest. Do we need to step in? After knowing that Xiao Chen had killed Tang Tianbao, the Tang family would definitely not let this matter rest. Moreover, Tang Tiancheng happened to be in the Tang family, which undoubtedly gave the Tang family a reason not to fear Xiao Chen. The deacon of the ancient saints sect asked if the city lord's mansion should step in to mediate the situation. After all, he knew that Saint Kuang Li had high hopes for Xiao Chen. However, Saint Kuang Li smiled. Tang Tiancheng should be the one to take action tomorrow. After all, other than him, no one else in the Tang family can touch Xiao Chen. Let's wait and see how strong Xiao Chen is after breaking through to the Dao Gate realm. Saint Kuang Li had already guessed that the Tang family would send Tang Tiancheng out tomorrow. He was curious about whether Xiao Chen would be a match for Tang Tiancheng. Anyway, with the city lord's mansion around, nothing would happen to Xiao Chen. He was still unaware that the matter between him and the Tang family had already caused an uproar in the city. After a good night's sleep, Xiao Chen prepared to return to Tianfeng Xingzong the next day. After leaving the inn, Xiao Chen did not try to hide his whereabouts. He swaggered towards the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. The Tang family naturally paid close attention to Xiao Chen's whereabouts. Therefore, as soon as Xiao Chen left the inn, the Tang family received the news. At the same time, Tang Tiancheng also rushed towards the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. Xiao Chen and Tang Tiancheng unexpectedly met outside the teleportation array in Wind Suppression City. Tang Tiancheng brought several elders of the Tang family. These elders were all at the Dao King realm, and one of them had even reached the Dao Emperor realm. Tang Tiancheng blocked Xiao Chen's path and said indifferently, "Xiao Chen, do you think that the Tang family won't dare to do anything to you? How dare you act so brazenly after killing a member of my Tang family? Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation." End of chapter. Chapter 714. Tang Tiancheng was wearing the uniform of a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Xiao Chen's face. He already understood where the Tang family's confidence came from. Logically speaking, there was only one explanation for the Tang family daring to make a move on him despite knowing that he was a direct disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. That was that the Tang family had the confidence to not fear Tianjin Xingzong. Previously, Xiao Chen had been curious as to where a mere half-step saint family got the confidence to not fear the Heavenly Wind Holy Sect. However, after seeing Tang Tiancheng today, Xiao Chen understood. Tang Tiancheng was a direct disciple of the ancient sacred sect. This was the reason why Tang family dared to attack him. However, the Tang family clearly didn't suspect that Xiao Chen didn't choose to leave Jinfeng City, even though he knew that the Tang family was no longer afraid of his identity. This also meant that Xiao Chen also had his own backing. This backing had nothing to do with Tianjin Xingzong, because it came from the octagonal gate. Tang Tiancheng was a direct disciple of the ancient saint sect. The ancient saint sect stood behind him. However, if Shao Chun exposed the fact that he possessed the octagonal gate, what would the ancient saint sect do? The ancient saint sect had already begun to secretly pay attention to Shao Chun. Now, not only had Shao Chun broken through to the Tao Gate realm, but he had also condensed the octagonal gate. In this way, would the ancient saint sect allow something to happen to Shao Chun? If nothing unexpected happened, once Shao Chun's octagonal gate was exposed, the upper echelons of the ancient saint sect would definitely not sit idly by. The octagonal Tao Gate, or rather, his own talent, was Shao Chun's greatest reliance. Between a person who had formed the octagonal Tao Gate and a personal disciple, it shouldn't be a difficult choice to make. Tang Tiancheng obviously didn't know what Shao Chun was thinking. Of course, Tang Tiancheng had also completely underestimated the importance that the ancient saint sect attached to Shao Chun. In Tang Tiancheng's opinion, even if Shao Chun had some talent, it was nothing compared to him. The ancient saint sect wouldn't blame him, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect, for a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. He felt that Shao Chun was relying on Tianfeng Xingzong. Therefore, Tang Tiancheng came in person today to tell Shao Chun that Tianfeng Xingzong was nothing. At least, they couldn't protect Shao Chun. Facing Tang Tiancheng's confident expression, Shao Chun revealed a faint smile and said, "So this is what your Tang family is relying on as a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. What? Do you still think that my Tang family doesn't dare to kill you?" Tang Tiancheng didn't deny Shao Chun's words. Instead, he sneered and replied. With Tang Tiancheng's status, he naturally dared to kill Shao Chun. Hearing his words, Shao Chun didn't panic as expected. Instead, he smiled and said without any change in his expression, "Do you think you can kill me?" Since he had nothing to fear, Shao Chun naturally didn't have anything to worry about. Moreover, it was rare to meet Tang Tiancheng, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. Shao Chun's cultivation had also broken through to the Tao Gate realm. To be honest, Shao Chun also wanted to see how strong he was now, especially when compared to the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. It should be known that Shao Chun's next goal was to become the prospective Holy Son. In this way, his strength would naturally surpass that of the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. Therefore, it was no exaggeration to say that Tang Tiancheng was Shao Chun's alchemy stone. Moreover, he was the most suitable alchemy stone. After he finished speaking, a battle intent slowly spread out from Shao Chun's body. Feeling this battle intent, Tang Tiancheng was stunned at first, but he quickly sneered and said, "What? You think you have the strength to contend with me after breaking through to the Tao Gate realm by luck? I'm not comparable to a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong." As he spoke, a wave of spiritual energy suddenly surged out from Tang Tiancheng's body. This wave of spiritual energy was extremely pure and huge. Tang Tiancheng could only be considered as the weakest among the pro-disciples of the ancient saint sect. However, if he was placed in Tianfeng Xingzong, with his strength and talent, he could at least be ranked in the top 3. After all, even the number 1 pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, Wang Zong, would only be able to condense the Pentagate if he broke through to the Tao Gate realm, just like Tang Tiancheng. In the Heavenly Wind Sacred Sect, the pentagonal Tao Gate was already a peak existence. However, in the ancient sacred sect, the pentagonal Tao Gate was merely at the threshold of a direct disciple. Only direct disciples who could form the 6-edged Tao Gate could be considered the true peak. Of course, if one wanted to reach the level of a Holy Son or a prospective Holy Son, the Pentagate should be the standard. A terrifying aura constantly spread out from Tang Tiancheng's body. Sensing Tang Tiancheng's terrifying spiritual energy, Shao Chun wasn't nervous at all. On the contrary, the battle intent in his heart grew even stronger. The two of them stood facing each other. A great battle was about to break out. The surrounding cultivators all looked curiously at Shao Chun and Tang Tiancheng. As geniuses of the younger generation in the ancient saint state, the battle between Shao Chun and Tang Tianqing was naturally very attractive. After a while, Tang Tianqing made the first move. All along, Shao Chen's indifferent attitude had made Tang Tianqing furious. The storage ring on his hand flashed, and a long sword appeared in his hand. He fiercely stabbed out as he shouted coldly, "Shao Chun, die. Today I'll use your head to test my younger brother, Tianbao. Come and take it if you have the ability. Let me see how strong a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect is." Hearing Tang Tianqing's words, Shao Chun calmly replied. Then, he unsheathed his ink dragon sword and stabbed out to meet Tang Tianqing's attack. Both of them were sword cultivators. When their swords were unsheathed, sword intent swept out. With a clang, the two long swords collided. The terrifying sword intent instantly tore the ground apart. It was a head-on collision. Surprisingly, Shao Chun didn't fall into a disadvantageous position when facing Tang Tianqing. Originally, people thought that Tang Tianqing's strength should be able to suppress Shao Chun. However, after the real battle, Shao Chun didn't choose to dodge Tang Tianqing's attack. Instead, he chose to meet it head-on in the most direct way. In a head-on collision, Shao Chun blocked Tang Tianqing's attack. Moreover, he didn't fall into a disadvantageous position at all. This shocked the surrounding people. One must know that Shao Chun was only a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong, while Tang Tianqing was a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect. Although they were both pro-disciples, logically speaking, there should be an insurmountable gap between the two of them. After all, in terms of quality, a pro-disciple of the ancient saint sect was definitely stronger than a pro-disciple of Tianfeng Xingzong. With just one attack, Shao Chun gave everyone a pleasant surprise. Of course, the one who was most shocked was Tang Tianqing. Facing Shao Chun personally, Tang Tianqing could clearly feel that the power of Shao Chun's sword wasn't any weaker than his own. This made Tang Tianqing feel a mix of emotions. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. End of chapter. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.